the targets don't care about the reality. If you have people who are sick or unavailable or overworked, the targets don't mean anything. The capacity is what determines the realities. Like, everybody still needs Jesus, like, no matter how you spin. that's
the come to
lesson.
Jesus moment. Yeah,
it's still that they know stuff for sure. They know for a fact, because the decision makers, they talk to them and they're like, oh, you're gonna do this, right? For sure. Yeah, okay, we're friends, right? Okay, good, I'm gonna buy it then. Because in an ideal world, you say, I want this. Do you want this? No? Okay, goodbye. You want this? Great, let's go. How simple is that? How simple is that? What is the problem with this? Can we just do that? Because, yeah, you can find anyone to blame for anything at any point in time, dude. The boomers also had stuff to blame, right? Hello. Welcome to the Deep Fried Spork podcast again.
Welcome to the space.
Welcome to the space 2026. The month is already passing by. It's already been 3 weeks. I don't know what I've been doing. I don't know what's been going on. I know I've been doing something.
I have generally no clue. Okay.
Yeah.
Generally no clue what is going on. I mean, it's already, it's a half a month already, and it's just lots of crazy stuff happening. Who knows what the rest of the year is going to be like.
Yep. It's keep getting more intense. I've been busy this whole week helping my dad buy a used car.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been a journey on its own. Lots of learnings, lots of insights.
Oh my God.
Yes, like the same old truths are just coming to mind. But yeah, it's mostly because that I'm just not experienced in buying cars. As any big purchase, I assume it's just a complex clusterfuck of a process where there are many players, many risks, many people who want to get paid during this process, and it's just fascinating. But definitely the lesson is that never deal with dealership ever again in my lifetime.
No, that's
Never.
what I figured, man. Ever since having to, in my case, I had to have my truck hauled there for repair. I thought, it's a dealership. They have all the stuff, and it should not be, but oh my God, just the kind of, it's just a sheer scam.
Yeah.
Like, even for it doesn't matter, is their
Everything.
service department, their parts department, whatever. They try to upsell you on everything.
Yeah, that's
And
one.
I was
one of
foolish,
the things.
and I was foolish enough to kind of went through with it. I should have thought otherwise. Like, okay, I don't care. Even if the truck is not moving, I'll just spend a couple $100, tow that truck to another shop to get another assessment, right? Like, it would be way cheaper, and they can fix all the problem. But
yeah,
it's in retrospect that I realized, okay, I seen the list of the thing that I already paid for. I'm
it's
like,
always
wait,
in
hold on.
retrospect.
Yeah, it's like, hold on, they charged me this for this, and then I start researching, okay, how hard is it to change this, or and then it's like, I could have done it myself.
Yep.
It's like, it's just, so
that's the process.
That's the lesson.
You realized, I realized the same thing, and it's the whole thing, the biggest part that kind of bothers you, and I guess it's pretty much known, especially once you go through this once, but the whole thing is predatory, essentially, right? It's not like, because you go there, I go there as a simple naive person. I go there, these are great guys who care about their reputation, who are interested to take care of you as their customer. No, that's not at all what they're there for, and that's what they're doing. They rush you to sign things as soon as possible, to send them money as soon as possible before anything else even happens. And they rush you, like they hustle you. So you kind of get confused about, first of all, I didn't know what the full process is. And because there's so many moving parts in the handover of the car in terms of registration, safety inspection, who is responsible for what, like figuring out in real time, even with the help of AI, was not doable. Like even AI doesn't know, because the process is so confusing, and it can be done in so many different ways in terms of maybe this dealership supports that, maybe that it doesn't, that it was just, I was literally not following it. Like, I was confused as to what the process was, and I was expecting them to guide me. And of course, they're just going to do whatever is serving their needs and ignore everything else. So their job is essentially to shift all the risk and all the problems on you, And even the worst part, and with this dealership, they're in their contract, they're saying that they're selling the car as is, which means legally, whatever is wrong with the car, if you find out later, they're not going to do anything. We were able to convince them to give us the car just to get it to mechanic first without paying the full sum. We just gave them like 1.5 grand as cash as a deposit. And even then, like, what do you need the deposit for? You know, like, you don't really question these things because, okay, if that's your process, that's your process. But really, essentially, you're supposed to battle them and fight them for every single thing, protecting your interest, reducing your
Yeah.
risk everywhere. But that's, who wants to do that? Who wants to like go there as a battleground? But apparently that's exactly what you need to do. And to me, it's so confusing because you expect, oh, there's a legal process, there's a specific sale process that they have, but essentially no. Everything you're supposed to negotiate everything. You're supposed to stand there and negotiate every dot, every letter, and
Yep.
every clause, and just like fight for basic things. So it's just a little bit of a saga. Like, yeah, we brought the car to the mechanic, which my dad used for like 10 years. And the mechanic says, no, this car is shit. Don't buy it. Like, it's going to cost you $6,000 to repair it. I'm like, what? Okay, that's shit. Like,
Yeah.
I'm going into panic mode because I'm like, well, we already signed the contract because that's what they told us to do. And we thought that's the process. And the contract says it's final. I researched it online. It's final. Like, you don't legally, they have the right to enforce it. We don't have any ammunition to like say we're out. So I'm like thinking like, what are we gonna do? You know, freaking out. Half a day we're brainstorming strategies, and throughout talking to my dad, I realized that mechanic is kind of like an idealist, a perfectionist, and he is, you know, he has certain standards. He only likes Toyotas and Hondas, and he recommends buying only those cars. And we considered that, but they're more expensive. They're not in their price range, so we won't be able to buy them. And I'm trying to get more details, and then I'm realizing that we don't have to fix everything in the car. We just need to pass the safety inspection,
Yeah.
which the mechanic is supposed to do. So we're like, hold on, what's that's not what are our full options? And we talk to the mechanic again. We ask them what it's going to be to fix the stuff for the safety inspection, and they say, yeah, it's going to be like maybe $1,000 plus. We can do some extra stuff. And we're like, yeah, we're going to have to do that because we're on the hook already. So we messed up,
Uh,
essentially. We messed up. But we don't have a choice. We proceed, or everything else, all the other options are worse. Like, they're worse because
right.
we lose much more time and money. So we're like, okay, this is an expensive lesson. Let's proceed with that. But then there's just so many little small things on like along the way that are difficulties. We need to transfer the money uh, to the dealership, and they need a wire transfer, and that's only possible in person in your home branch. You can't even do it online or over the phone in 2026, which is insane. It's like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
So you get to transfer the money this way, then you have to still right. And the mechanic told the dealership to like take the car away from them because they thought we're not gonna buy it. So they got the car back to the dealership. So I had to go like message the dealership to say like, well, sorry about that, but like we need the car back at that the same mechanic because we changed our mind. He changed their mind, and now we already sent them the payment, and I'm just waiting for them to confirm or to get the car to the mechanic. So they're not even. I don't even know when they're gonna get the car to the mechanic.
Couldn't
So
couldn't you go there and drive it yourself? No.
uh, I could, but like they said, they're just gonna do it because they did it the first time. Like, they insisted on it. Essentially, I don't know why, but essentially, it's in limbo. I don't know what's going on, and it's just, it's frustrating because I don't know what they're doing. Are they scamming us? Is this just a trick? I have a paper trail and everything, but you just never know. Like, the whole thing is so shady. Like, it feels so shady that I have no idea. Like, I'm just hoping that everything is going to work out, but that's what it looks like. And like, no, never again. Like, if you're dealing with one person who is a private seller, it's a totally different thing. Like, they're not going to be hassling you like this because they don't, it's
No.
not a business for them. They're
Yeah.
interested in actually just getting rid of the car and getting some money for it. But here it's a business model.
Yep.
So they're trying to like get
That's how
chumps to
they.
like hand over the money and minimize the risk and not deal with anything. And the whole reason we went there, we went to the dealership is because my dad he was sure that essentially it's impossible for a dealership to sell a car without the already completed safety inspection. So it was like an assumption essentially, right? So you thought it wasn't even possible. But apparently they can just buy a piece of garbage and sell it.
Yep.
And there's nothing that prevents them from doing so. The whole thing is just a mess. There's just so many little loopholes and so many different interests. The mechanic is also, it's like they have their own agenda, right? They don't
Yeah.
care. They want to get money for doing the mechanic stuff. So they can tell you whatever. So finding people who you can trust, I think, essentially is the most
Yeah.
important thing in your life.
I got lucky because the repair shop that I found is actually quite honest folks. Like they're actually the prices are okay and they don't really push that much stuff on you. And it's like they have they're pretty busy, so it's like they don't need to hustle me. There's so many other truck they got to fix. They just tell you what's wrong with it, and this is the part you got to fix, and they fix whatever they. I mean, here and there small changes about the lights, and here there's a safety inspection requirement, whatever. It's like okay, fine, but the prices are okay, so these guys are actually pretty good. And there's one time I was stranded somewhere and they actually drove out on a Sunday to come and test what's going on and was able to start a vehicle for me to drive it to their shops. And so, you know, some of these people you can find, like they're actually honest about what they do. And it's great to see. And I was lucky that I found somebody who can do that for me because otherwise I'm like, it's been a long time. I've just never found any kind of reputable shops. It's just always kind of like one scam after another. So it's lucky to find a group that's honest. So
I guess that's kind of how it looks like, right? You don't have a choice but to trust and try until you find somebody you can trust. But this process of like going through this stuff and just finding out that you can't trust them, it kind of looks it's very difficult to avoid, right? But the whole thing just it doesn't make sense to me in my mind because really whatever business you have, it's in your interest to establish a trustworthy business with long-term reputation, good reputation where people will actually, you know, keep going and spreading the good word and promoting your business essentially.
yeah, but somehow these dealerships, I guess because they have huge backings from they're official, quote unquote, right? From whether that's just the brand or wherever else, they have this supposedly official status, and therefore they're definitely bankrolled by you know some institution or what have you. So they don't really care about you because it's not like they have to satisfy customers to maintain their business. It's basically the business will still go even without you know or at least they're part of that whole system where everybody needs a car and most people will go to the dealership instead of because you will
Mm.
think that, oh, I trust these people, they're supposed to be you know quality and official, kind of in capacity, and you don't trust some third party small shops, and you think you can trust these bigger places, but just maybe that's kind of ironic that just because they're big, they're able to survive without having to serve your needs.
Yeah. So that whole thing is essentially it was stressing me out. And in combination with my sleep issues, like I felt it like pretty significantly because like I just feel my nervous system is that sensitive, right? And at some point, I think a couple days ago, I literally started feeling this really intense bout of anxiety that I haven't felt like the only time I felt something like that as extreme as that, like in December 2024 when I had that heart incident. It was also, I think, related to some kind of anxiety thing. So I started feeling
Yeah.
like intense bout of anxiety just sitting there like in front of a computer, and just swelling up somewhere. And I just started having like visions. I started like thinking about all the ways that I would need to deal with it, like things I could do like to threaten them or something with legal action and stuff, going there, imagining having to like battle it, just essentially mind inventing these really
Scenarios.
terrible scenarios and just like showing them to me. And I'm sitting there like, yo, I want to think about this stuff. This is like dumb. This is like negative fantasizing. Like I'm gonna deal with the actual reality when I know about the next step and stuff. So I try to like stop thinking about it. It doesn't work. I try to just just recite some mantras in my head because usually that also helps. It didn't really work. Like it doesn't stop it. You have to continuously concentrate on something else. So it was really bothering. Like I couldn't do much to stop it. Like I took a shower, I just went to bed, couldn't get to sleep because I was too wired up. And then the next morning I woke up and I was still feeling like my heart is little like pounding. Like I feel the anxiety essentially.
Whoa.
And I'm like, Jesus Christ, what am I going to do? So I tried to do a coherent breathing practice where it's essentially you inhale, like maybe like on a count of 6 or 4, and exhale right away. So kind of there's no pause. It's just a steady, slow breathe in and breathe out. And I just did it for like 6 or so minutes. And dude, I felt so good after that. Like everything was gone. Like the whole anxiety thing was gone completely. Like I felt my body was relaxed. And ever since then, I feel completely fine. So I did it today as well. And yeah, I'm just gonna make it a part of my daily morning practice because it looks like it literally calms the nervous system down and takes you out of that fight or flight mode and just keeps you like grounded and like your subconscious, I guess, is calmed down. Like it's not doesn't feel in danger. So that was like a really cool thing to learn and figure out because the whole situation kind of forced me to try and look for some kind of solution, right? And obviously I tried the breath work before, but not coherent breathing practice, not this one, not that. I tried it a couple times before, but only this time I noticed how powerful of an effect it makes on me. So I'm gonna be sticking to that, and
Mhm.
hopefully that will keep me grounded.
Yeah, that's it's definitely the regulating aspect to such exercise for sure. Because yeah, it's if I can recall, sometimes I will have these kind of moments of you mind kind of like hook onto a weird thoughts, and then it just continues to be like manifesting itself. It's like the more you don't want it to happen, the more you're thinking about it. You know,
Yeah, yeah,
sometimes
it gets stuck on it, like it's yeah. That was the part that bothers me the most. Is essentially it's repetitive. It's like a repetitive thing. Like it keeps it got stuck on one idea or one scenario, and it keeps like replaying to it, and that's the bothersome part because I'm like these days at least I'm expecting it just to pass through, and I'm like, okay, it's thought, all right, gone, thought gone. But
right.
here, when it gets stuck, and it's the same thing, and it just like bothers you, it pings you like away.
Yeah, so sometimes it happens to me, like if something kind of gets me worked up, you know, and sometimes you like try to calm yourself down, but then like the more you try it, the more angry you get, you know.
Yeah.
It's like he's like what this it does the opposite of what you want to happen. So and it kind of takes some time for that to kind of go back to baseline. And even
Hmm.
though it's like you try to as a meditation telling yourself to calm down, that you realize that this is pointless. There's no need to be emotional about any of this. But as you're having that conversation in your head, it's like it's almost as if the other half of you is just saying, "No, I don't want to agree to that. I want to be," you know. So that's how I feel. It's weird. It's almost like two parts of you fighting, and you're trying to figure out, you know, one part you understand. Okay, well, it's for my good. Is in my best interest to calm down, to not get emotional and get worked up. But the other part of you is like, oh, who are you to tell me? You know, it's like it's just kind of that weird dynamic. But overall, like the exercise wins out because you get to kind of train yourself to kind of go into that mode,
Yeah.
right? To
Yeah.
calm yourself
But
down.
the biggest
And
thing is essentially it's the physiology. It's the fact that simple control of your breath literally affects your mental state and your physical state, like how you feel. Just as simple as that. So I knew the breath is a powerful thing, but it's kind of with this experience in mind, it becomes central. Like it becomes like a lived experience of the fact that if you just, and I know this too, like I know of actual masters just emphasizing this point alone that if you control your breath, That's the only thing you need to do. Everything else is going to be handled. So that kind of proves the point to me that if you take care of your breath and be mindful of your breath, then your nervous system is going to be in optimal state. And that's kind of the most important thing, as I've seen in my own experience. And with this and the fact that I shifted my schedule and now I wake up early naturally, finally, it looks like it's happening. I feel great these days. So I think I'm out of the woods at this point. It won't knock on anything, but I think I know the formula at this point. To just keep a steady schedule, wake up early, and don't mess it up. So, and that itself, that does require willpower because there's a natural lazy instinct, and I'm just gonna sleep in. I'm gonna sleep in. But if you keep doing that, essentially your sleep schedule get messed up. Like you're not able to sleep in. You're not able to sleep at all. So it's kind of like some kind of self-regulating mechanism where no, you can't just sleep in. You need to keep going. You need to be on the schedule. You need to have a system, like an actual system. Sleeping in is not exactly part of that system. Sleeping in is only when you actually need it, when you were sick, when you're super tired or something, right? When it's warranted. But you should be striving towards a recurring, like every day, you should be a fresh person getting up early and doing stuff. Essentially, there's no uh, there's no rest if you are healthy and young and full of stuff to do. You should just be doing stuff, getting up and doing stuff. Because I tried the other route, it doesn't really work. It just wastes so much time. Even when I didn't have the sleeping problems, I would just wallow in bed and just like watch my phone or something. Like a
Mm.
complete waste of time. It feels like, oh, it's nice, I'm relaxing and stuff. But
Doom scrolling.
it's dumb. It's nothing, right? It's just literally a waste of time. Really happy that I'm kind of got to this mode. The energy levels are stabilizing. Feel good in the morning. Feel sleepy late night. So think I'm good these days. Which kind of brings
Yeah.
me to the topics I wanted to talk about. I did want to continue the list just because I have so many lists. I wanted to cover the few fun aphorisms that I got on my personal lists. And if we have time, maybe touch on some items from my more broad spiritual insights wisdom list. So I have many lists and because they're just the kind of separate categories like the list we did on New Year's, that's our own fun, but at the same time there's wisdom and the type of stuff there. We ended up having lots of deep takes on lots of true true sayings and knowledge essentially about reality. And this is similar. And I want to see some of them are fun and kind of funny sounding, but some of them are not. I want to see if we can make them into fun, each and single one of them. I want to see what the funny is or what the funny could be in all of them. I was just watching a comedian doing a podcast, and they were talking about part of the process essentially. You can just be in public, watching people watching, and you can be literally just looking and seeking out and asking yourself, what's funny here? And you do find it just by that question alone. And I really liked it because I think that just kind of makes the mind go. It makes the mind find something. Because usually when you ask a question, there's an answer to it. You can come up with some kind of answer. And some answer is going to be better than others. And that's how you hone the joke. But usually you're going to have some kind of idea, right? You can say something. You can start with some kind of nonsense, but you can eventually, if you keep spinning it, if you keep working on it, you can make it funny. So we can try it with this list as well. And the first one is kind of related to what we were just talking about. Yeah. So the first one is moderate yourself. And it's a funny sounding one because the word moderate kind of have different connotations, and moderate, it kind of encompasses all kinds of things. Essentially, it's a play on the middle way, right? So you got to
Hmm.
moderate yourself in all things. So whatever you're doing, you better moderate that because I don't know, life is kind of going from one extreme to another. They're always. So this is why all the problems are happening. You're either to this or that. too hungry or too tired or too restless or too bored. It's always that you hit that one extreme and then like, oh no, I need to get to the other side. But you never really stop, in the middle and all right, I'm good. You always hit some other wall. And this moderate yourself, yeah, it's like a mantra almost it could be because whatever you're doing, you're like, all right, am I moderated right now?
You see, even the word is kind of funny, right?
It
Moderate
is,
has two meaning, right? One is to, a moderator,
yeah,
somebody who can be impartial and kind of, step between the issues and try to find I guess that's the connecting idea, right? To find the middle ground, to find and therefore we also use the word moderate as to, right? To reduce it to kind
yeah,
of not to the extreme. So you're right.
yeah.
That's the
So you,
connection of the word.
yeah, you're like you're a moderator, but you're moderating yourself. So it kind of
Yeah.
forces you to step out and into a third person perspective. It's like, all right, is this guy on the level? Is he be your own moderator, which is difficult, but it's also kind of like what meditation is practice is supposed to do, right? It's supposed to like observe yourself and try and be objective and sober, yeah, and balanced, yeah, to moderate yourself.
I think some part of the problem is that humans kind of see, like we try to project kind of future in our heads, right? We want a better result for ourselves. And so
Mm,
we have all these attachments in terms of like, you can call it ambition, you can call it, I don't know, you're just, people will call you tripping, power tripping or whatever. Like you're trying to envision a future that's so much better than now that that's an over attachment to that kind of, so that creates all the anxieties and things that kind of filtering through that if you put yourself onto that kind of schedule of like, oh, I need to do this, I need to do that, I need to get to that level. And you tend to bounce a lot within that because humans are hard to see incremental results. It's because you,
mm.
you usually don't see them, right? When you realize, oh, I'm getting better at this, but you only see the result that you are better, but you can't see that like, okay, how did I get here? But it is that kind of incremental thing, but it's happening every day and you don't see it. And people just want to stuff that they can see. It's like, oh, I did this, I see the result of it. It's that kind of almost instant gratification that
Mhm.
kind of fuels the brain, right? So to moderate yourself, to do that, it takes a lot of kind of willpower and mental awareness to be like, oh, okay, I can see that I'm going on to the extreme, and therefore I must, for my own interest, to go onto a path where maybe you don't feel like it's working, or maybe you feel like, oh, it doesn't feel like anything. I'm trying to moderate myself, but why? I want to experience the good stuff. Why are you stopping me from doing that?
This is the big point. And it's like you mentioned several things that have been really poignant to me lately. The future part is really tricky because I know now, it's only now, that's the big part of the whole spirituality thing. It's in the now. But still there is such a thing as future, and it does deserve some thinking, some caring for and planning for. But to me, like these days especially, I do agree that I am just more concentrated on the iteration and just on the next visible task that I do feel and I know, okay, these are the things that I for sure need to do. Like I know that I have to do them, right? But it doesn't even become a question. Like they just certain tasks come that I need. I know that I have to solve this. Yes, this is important, and this needs to happen because it's just one of the building blocks of the thing that I'm working on. But really, I'm not thinking about what this whole thing will look like, in future, in a year or whatever. I know if I just keep working on this next little building block in an iteration and keep iterating, then in a year I will be great. I will be much better. So kind of, yeah, that's a given for me. I don't really, I definitely don't spend time these days picturing what it will be, what the future will be, what a year forward is going to be like. I think I don't know, I know people do that, there is such a thing as positive visualization, but I don't need that. Like, I do like the mystery of it too. I do like the uncertainty at this point, right? I don't need to define it. I know it's going to be something new, something interesting, and you just do the best you can right now in the moment, but don't really worry too much about the future state. this is another reason I'm not sure if I'm gonna be able to be a project manager anymore because of that. Because there you kind of do have to worry a lot about
Project.
the future state, and correct toward it all the time. But that's just not really how I live my life anymore. Like it's very strange because I could try to do it that way, but it essentially will have to be a lot of calming people down and telling them it's fine and to relax, not like, try to meet this target on that target. Because I know for a fact it doesn't really work like that. The targets don't care about the reality. If you have people who are sick or unavailable or overworked, the targets don't mean anything. The capacity is what determines the reality. So the best you can do is like care for people's capacity and their well-being, and everything else follows. But nobody really thinks about that. Not in business, not in corporate. Not really. Like the numbers rule there, right? Everybody gets reduced to numbers. So I don't know. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to work there anymore, but we'll see. You never know. Everybody
Well,
needs money.
yeah, but I think that any job that after you're, kind of being aware of it
Hmm.
now, you can't really work anymore. Not in the way of like, because you almost have to hype yourself into it because you see all the BS of what it is, right? It's like, oh, this is just this circus that we're running, right?
Yeah.
But apparently that's how you get your resources now, right? It's like for you to be able to survive, you're
Yeah, it's
relying
a
on the
system.
system. You're relying on the system to run, but you see it's a circus, but that's what it is. It's almost like you have to, that's the painful part. Like you have to kind of convince yourself, okay, I see that, yeah, I see it for what it is, but I still have to
Hmm.
pretend that, you know, when it comes to, especially when the work itself takes a lot more socializing than,
Right.
as it needs to be done, because in that, you have to be in that system. And the more you interact with other people, the more you have to keep up the face. You kind of keep up the
Yep.
whole charade. And this is, again, this is what's happening with the recently, I just learned about thing about in Japan, right? The whole idea that people work themselves to death,
Yeah.
that they couldn't see a future. And
Uh-huh.
this is like, okay, so I'm locked up in this society, in this place where everybody is climbing that pyramid or whatever, and there's nothing you can do. Your boss is your boss. Like there is, but they literally own you, right? You cannot say anything counter to what they want, and you have to agree with the whatever they say just because they're the boss. And like the example of like they hire you to go to work, to sit there, and you got nothing to do. And like, people are telling them, "Hey, I'm free to do more work." But it's like, nope, you just stay there and you don't leave until your boss leave because that's rude. It's rude to leave,
Wow.
So that's the
See,
whole
like
like,
it doesn't make so much sense. It's just it's literally like a system designed to oppress people then,
right. And the people accept it. They're like, apparently this is what's happening in Japan, right? The culture says that, wow, this is the way it is, and you can't change it. This is called, this is tradition. This is how things is in that corporate
Yeah, but
environment.
if you
And
just think about it for 2 seconds, like the whole
it's
thing
it
falls apart. You can't just say
right.
it's tradition. We've had all kinds of crazy traditions before, they've gone. It's not like you have to murder your whole society because the tradition, everything
Yeah,
changes.
but you see, but the people, the workers, they're jumping off buildings because
Yeah.
I can see how their mindset is just like, well, there is no exit.
Yeah, I can imagine it's got to be so ultimately dejecting that you're like, well, this is futile.
Yeah, because in Japan, one of the problem is that if you ever get, this is the conflicting part about modern Japanese culture, is like in the modern day, you see that in the West, you get fired all the time. But
Hmm.
apparently in Japan, right, the company is like being fired is like a big deal. It's a shameful thing. Like you
It means
cannot
like
be
something
fired.
completely wrong with you. Yeah.
Right. So that's why society treat you differently after you get fired. It's like, oh, must be something wrong with you. You did something wrong and therefore they had to let you go, Because
Yeah.
the cultural mentality is that
It's
you're
so
always hired.
unforgiving.
It's like once you go into a company and you stay with them your whole life. I mean, that was
Mm.
the past, right? But now the economic model does not support it anymore. And so in the modern day, these people some people unfortunately will have to lose their job because the company can't keep up because of the economy, so they had to do that. So in the West, it's naturally done because like, well, it's unfortunate for those who are let go, but for in terms of the company's perspective, so well, we don't have the money to support all these, so naturally things have to change. But in Japan, it's like everybody expecting that you're gonna be working once you enter the company, you'll be working your whole life, right? You get it's golden key, you have your pension when you get old. That's in the past, not anymore. So people are let go, and these people lose status. And in Japan, they're being looked down upon once you can't get a job or whatever. Like it's almost a vicious cycle. The moment you get fired or you get let go, laid off, even laid off, right? So it's not your fault. You let go and you try to find another job, and then other employer not hiring you because you got fired
Wow.
or you
Yeah, it's
get,
like you're branded.
yeah, you're branded. Like, oh, you must be something wrong with you. So some of these people will eventually just become less, they go into these lower, essentially homeless even,
Mm,
or at least like not having any reputable job anymore. And they had to do some, random labor
yeah.
job
Yeah.
because they lost the prestige or what have you. So that's happening. And at the other hand, even if you don't get to that level, it's like these people are working so hard.
Yeah, it's miserable.
It's like the overworked, there's no life, right? And then with the whole prospect of the economy and everybody get depressive. Yeah, it makes sense. But eventually these people get to that level where they couldn't take it anymore because it's like they don't see a future. There's no changes that they can enact themselves. The society just will not, they feel like they cannot change it, right? So that's happening in Japan and also kind of in East Asia. But in general, right? In all over the world, people are working in these structures, systems that create all these levers of kind of the whole consumer world, right? We're building all these stuff, we're selling all this stuff. This is what the whole economy is based on. And if anything stops that, the whole other kind of dominoes will just start to fall and other aspects are going to show up in society. This is what we're seeing right now. And so, yeah, people are living in more anxious states all over the world because of in their own mind, their own forecasts about the future and all. So I think definitely the idea to moderate yourself, it's kind of like constantly kind of tell yourself that, okay, things are crazy, but I gotta handle myself, right? It's like, okay, don't go to the
Yeah,
extremes,
it's an
moderate
overarching
this.
arc.
It, it even if you don't know what the end result of this kind of trying to moderate yourself look like, but you know for sure that if you do it, in the end, the result will be better than what you could have gotten if you haven't done that and just go off the wall here and there and constantly being manipulated, bombarded by, information out there about the current state of things and what have you, right? Because even if you're actively trying to reject these kind of, okay, I don't want to get affected by it, but you are, which is why you have to kind of constantly be on the tiptoe in terms of what you accept as kind of true and what's not, because everything is so much misinformation out there. It's just, it's social media hygiene is one
Yeah,
thing, but
it's in so many things. Like the reason I like it, it's so general that it's versatile because you can just use it as a
for
daily
anything.
check-in point,
Yeah.
because you don't have to be specific because you can't like monitor everything, all dimensions of your being and what you're thinking, what you engage in at all times. But if you were sitting there in a day and just ask yourself, do I need to moderate anything about myself today? Like, is there anything?
There
Am I?
gotta be something. There gotta be
It's got to
something
be
you can
something every
moderate, right?
day. Yeah, it's like,
Yeah.
am
Taking
I
this too
off the
much.
balance here or
Yeah.
there? Is anything needs to be adjusted, as a valuable checkpoint because sometimes you just get carried away, you'll just sit down and you zone out or you've been browsing Reddit for several hours or something. It's stuff like that helps you like it makes it into a habit, because eventually you stop doing that. Eventually I think you can internalize this stuff and be more moderated person by default because I do feel it that way. It's just this can serve as a very valuable and simple reminder of just not strain too far off balance. One thing you said about Japan kind of made me think that this that also means that there is an opportunity right now in the country for a whole new culture to evolve, because all those disenfranchised people, there's got to be a bunch of them. They
Wow.
they could introduce a model of business that works for people better, because these people know firsthand this sucks. All they need is either capital to do something like that, or band together and make it a social movement. But then again, I don't know even if that is against the tradition, because it's kind of like a revolution in a sense. Because if you get a group of people who are saying like, yeah, this way of business sucks, and that's the traditional way of business, and they're doing something new, it is kind of going against tradition.
It's
But
a
I don't see
disruptive,
how you would have any other choice. You'd
but
have to go a new way.
that's what will have to happen, because it's like you have the status quo and there are people who are upholding that status quo. So yeah, any kind of dissenting voice to trying to change that, these people will not be happy. That's what's happening with all society, right? There's always a status quo and there's always somebody who benefit from this, but they're also, it's just a percentage. How much people are not being benefited by the status
Exactly.
quo, and when they get to a certain amount, then things are gonna have to change because that's just like inevitable. Because you know, and look at what's happening around the world right now. That's what's happening, right? All these protests, all these things are just kind of a part of that. These voices kind of start to come together because they have common symptoms. Or I mean, the problem that they face has a common symptoms, and everybody is experiencing it, and therefore, the more it happens, the more. So in a way, you can see society has its own kind of self-regulating
Yeah, yeah. It's like everything reaches its
mechanism.
tipping point.
Yeah, so you can only accept a certain premise up to a point, right? If it gets to, I don't know, to a certain level, you cannot buy into it anymore, and it breaks, right? So it's either if people have the foresight, they will start making improvements slowly, but oftentimes, it doesn't happen. What happens is a violent kind of
Yeah,
eruption, right? An
yeah.
eruption, but that just means it's breaking point. So to moderate, again, in this idea that to moderate yourself is the harder part because you need to be constantly making that kind of reforms, so to speak, to yourself, right? And some of it can be painful. And you see, the problem is what's happening in the real world is that people are less likely to want to take to take the pain. They want to defer it. They want to kind of push it off somehow, right? That's what's happening in
Right.
the real
Yeah.
world. And nobody's doing the actual correct thing, right? Because they
Correct thing is
feel
more
like
difficult. Is always
it's more
more
difficult.
difficult.
It takes more effort. It takes more. But so people are avoiding that. And that's from a personal level up to like a society as well. Like people are just like, don't want that pain, don't want it right now. Just keep pushing it. But the result is worse. This is what's happening, right? It's like the current time is worse because some of the decision that's been made in the past did not serve, or it only served the short interest of the period then, and then you have vast ramifications later down the line that it's
That's such an important thing too. I think that's like gotta be one of the biggest causes for problems, really, because people don't think far enough into the future. Because I've encountered this in my job, in project, because there's always that exchange. Yeah, like people don't want to do documentation. They just want to do this little job and forget about it. But the absence of documentation is going to be a massive problem 6 months down the line.
yeah,
It's just they don't think about it because they don't care. They might be gone by then and stuff. But if like my job would include that, and that's the problem. But even then, it would require me to have enough integrity essentially to take it on as my job. Because I could be like, nah, that's like I don't want to bother with that. Because it is extra job. It is like an extra thing for you to do, energy to spend on, to think, to figure out. When I was younger, like I was much more eager to take these problems on, because I was more resourceful and more energetic and stuff. Was able to think through more stuff quicker. But holy smokes, was it intense, because the problems are endless. There's no shortage of stuff to figure out. Not only you need to figure it out, you need to like improve it, iterate it. You can't do any of that on your own. You literally need to build teams and processes to help you do that. But it's this short-sightedness. It is a problem in everywhere, right? We started with this discussion about dealership and predatory practices. That's short-sighted. Tons of businesses do that because, yeah, you'll get cash flow here and it's going to be sustainable, but at what cost? At long term, you're going to lose. And if it's not about long term, then what's the point, right? If it's not lasting, what's the
It's
point?
this again goes back to game theory, the prisoner's dilemma.
Right.
Essentially, if everybody cooperate, everybody wins, but
Going to be good.
nobody
Yeah.
does. Nobody does because everybody just considering their own self-interest, and from their point of view, it's like, well, it gets better if I do this. If I, so people will always take the shortcut. So this is kind of like, well, the reason why we can't have a utopia is we're kind of in the way to ourselves. Like we're kind of sabotaging ourselves because we couldn't see, or at least even if you could see the reasons why you should do it that way, the kind of, I don't know, like it's because it's painful and nobody will want to do it. And so we always take the shortcut, or most of the time we
Yeah.
take the shortcut. And that's
I
gonna,
remember somebody did a contest. I saw a video of it. I don't remember if you've seen that as well, where there was a contest to design an algorithm of playing that would be most profitable and long term, I think, in terms of, was it that game where you have to you have to pick whether you choose the prize or choose to share it, and you have two people who do that. So it's you and another person, and both of you have to decide whether you are splitting the profits or taking everything for yourself. And if both of you pick split, you split the profits. But if only one of you picks split and the other person chooses to take all, that person takes all.
yeah.
So this is a little psychological
So
dilemma, right? Because that's another person. You don't know them. You don't know how to trust them, right? And there are whole TV shows that are based on this premise because it's fun to watch how people are gonna deal with this. So I think they they included a bunch of scientists and philosophers and programmers and a lot of people to make a contest to design the best kind of algorithm of how to deal, like a strategy of how to play this game. And they've had many high level people who participated submitted their algorithms that they devised. There were psychologists involved, all kinds of folks. And the interesting part is one of the more simpler algorithms won. They put it through, I think, two contests, and the same algorithm, maybe its improved version got won the second time. But it
yeah.
essentially, if my memory serves me right, it was a combination of tit for tat plus some extra trust. So essentially, you watch the other person's behavior, and if they kind of lied to you and took all, you reciprocate that. So you revoke your trust, right? You're
Hmm.
like, okay, if you don't wanna trust me, I'm not gonna trust you. But you never do it first yourself. So if the mistrust didn't happen, you keep playing good, you keep playing well. It was a variation of that essentially. And the insight from that for me was that trust is kind of like respect. If you give it first, it's more likely to cause the other person to trust you and give respect back. And I think
Yeah.
this is key. So you just have to understand that and internalize. It's just a true statement that if you treat a person with respect by default first, it's felt. The other person feels it and sees it, and you can make it known, but you do have to make a deliberate work on it. So much of our default interactions, and like I know it on my own experiences, is that it's kind of thoughtless, right? You're not even considering the other person, especially in modern day and age, because you're living among strangers, right? We talked about this before. Everybody's a
Yeah.
stranger. You can't like keep making connections with every person you're passing by on the street. And that's kind of what hurts the whole culture and the whole communication norms, because ideally it would be like, it's like that's why I was so culture shocked when we were in Edmonton. It's a smaller town, but people on the street there actually look you in the eye. They smile at you and they're like greet
Yeah.
you like, oh wow, doesn't happen in a big city, man. It's
It's
so
very
it's
different.
so noticeable.
Yeah. So, right. I remember learning about that. Yeah, the algorithm where it actually finds out basically it tests all the hypotheses, right?
Yeah.
Different kind of strategies. And yes, though I think the one was like on average, the one that actually who kind of actively give out trust, that'd be like, I'm willing to work with you. I'm willing to, to
Right.
extend that kind of courtesy and understanding. Actually, in the end, it wins out because even though it has losses, they're gonna be there. Definitely cases where the other party doesn't care. They're basically just like cutthroat tactics,
Yeah,
and yeah,
because
you can
they
still
have
you
their own
you
interest,
you
right?
will be taken advantage of, but over time, overall, I think they still win out because people like to be able to trust other people. That's how things will work. Because if nobody trusts nobody absolutely, then nothing can get done. Because you always kind of have this kind of this is the other thing, right? The more preconceived notion that you have in your head, the more there's the barrier for you to getting through to the result that you want. Imagine things like stereotyping people, all this kind of layers of make believe in your thought process, and the result is just like the reality might not be the case. All those kind of preconceived notions. So the more we can kind of see things as what they are, or at least trying to not kind of put forward any opinions until you have more data to kind of parse out, you know, because I think people just tend to go to the shortcut being that you just want to kind of compartmentalize everything and just kind of quickly, you know, take that information and run with it. But the reality is that there's so many different variables. Things can be very different than what you think it would have. It's
Yeah.
definitely
It's a good I like that topic because it's essentially a lesson applicable to everything in life. All the human interactions are based on not just even human interactions, but everything you do consistently, recurrently, kind of needs to be you need to do it in a way where long term it works out well, right? Not the short-term strategies. The short-term, they're only important for stuff that is like critical to your survival, right? This is mainly where it would be applicable. But everything where you're needed to work long-term in terms of you need it to be as simple and as trustworthy as possible, you need to establish that and you need to maintain it, whether it's trust, reliability, honesty, respect. Yeah, mainly all the people stuff, all the human stuff. You do want to keep the long-term plan and strategy in mind. And that requires a little bit of foresight, a little bit of intellect, I guess, because I think doing the short-sighted, the short-term stuff is just dumb. It's because it ends up in problems. As this experiment, that game essentially shows, is that you can't just pick whatever even feels like intuitive, like, or just because it's dumb because it's egotistical, right? You're like, oh, I'm just gonna get stuff for myself. No, it doesn't work. It doesn't work, as this experiment shows.
yeah. I think because that kind of selfishness is kind of it's sort of this running mechanism for everybody, right? Like by default, you're just considering your own perspective naturally because that's all you're experiencing. So if humans have a hard time kind of parsing that out until you start thinking more deeply about systems and all things that
Yeah,
are
yeah,
around you, because by default you're just seeing what you're seeing. So if you act your entire life like this, just purely considering, okay, this is the easiest thing. Okay, I see what I see, I experience what I experience, and I take what I'm desiring. But the problem is that's so limited, right? You're only seeing that one thing, but the stuff that affects you that you don't see are still out there. This is why you have a study of economy, economics. You have all these fields of study where the data is the world is so much bigger than what you can encompass. But without considering it, you're just blind. You're blind to your own ego. You're blind to your own blind spots, psychologically speaking, and all these things that without kind of correlating that information with other people, you wouldn't understand what the world is about, right? So there's that connection, and you need to kind of gather from it to kind of inform yourself better, and you can be a better, not just performance wise in terms of your intellectual capacity and all that, but because we live in a society and things are changing and it does affect everybody. So it's like it's almost right now, it's like you have no choice but to be part of it because
Right.
almost can't reject it, even though you can have your opinion about, all these changes, especially now that things are happening way too fast, right? With this new kind of craze with AI and everything. And the whole market, the whole economy of countries are changing because of this kind of new technology that is still happening. So we're at a point where you have the original maker, OpenAI, they're bleeding money. They're
Hmm.
basically burning themselves out because they couldn't fix the problems in terms of going to the next level with it. Because the sheer amount of hardware that's needed, the infrastructure is not there to support all this research. So they don't have a good model beyond the one that they had. And to have the incremental improvement, like the AI capacity just needs more physical infrastructure to support it. All the electricity, the water usage, all that stuff just to run the computation for it to
Hmm.
become better. It got to that point where all the data they feed it, you need more computational power to
Yeah,
make it.
it's endless, right? It's there's no end to our needs, but something has to give. Yeah, at some point you reach a physical limitation, which is would require either another technological improvement, right? Technologically more efficient computational mechanisms or more resources. Yeah, so nothing can grow infinitely like that. You
Yeah,
always encounter some kind of bifurcation point, essentially, where you
yeah.
either diverge this way or that way, but yeah, it's like that with everything, you know. So, and you have, especially in tech, you have to be prepared for that. I assume or hope that they would have whole departments working on risks like that. It's like what's going to happen when, when we obviously reach some kind of physical limitation. It can't keep growing forever.
I don't know, but the point I'm making is that, see, this AI stuff affects all of us. You can't just say, like, I don't care about that. I'm just going to do my own thing
Yeah,
and
no,
cut it.
don't have a choice
No,
anymore.
you could lose your job because of AI. People have lost their job because of AI, right? It's a real effect. These new changes, you have all these money chasing after it, and that changes because now you have. I just learned that all these chip makers, like right now to buy a graphic card is very expensive, and that's
It's swung to that level again now.
right, because right now what changes is these companies are start phasing out, like the investment in the old systems are no longer there. The money are all chasing the new chips, the new kind of graphic cards that can solve these AI, like what the AI uses. So even for memories, for PC memories, like they're no longer making them, or at least they are basically reducing their maintenance systems. So because it doesn't make any money anymore. So most of their money are in the development of the new chips and new stuff, but the existing market are just holding all the supplies because they're slowing down their production for those old
Mhm.
ones, and the sellers, they see there's going to be a crunch, and so they're controlling the price right now by holding it and not releasing it into the market that quickly. So you have this kind of problem where the hardware issue is the company changes their strategy. Billions of dollars are being used to kind of change the way they run the business, and that's all because we have AI in the mix. And now people are trying to build the system to allow that, right? So, and that affects jobs, that affects the economy in general and everything else, right? It's almost like it's that butterfly effect. The idea that one thing happening at one corner of the earth can affect the whole earth. So it means that you can't afford not to know what's going on, or at least even generally. You don't have to. It might not be actionable for you to take any action on it specifically, but
Yeah, but
it
generally you want to be aware.
because otherwise you'll be in the dark.
Yeah, so
And
you can make some decisions that might be pertinent to you.
so,
Yeah, it's kind of complex. It sounds like some people need to moderate themselves.
which means, to
We all do.
moderate, it means you do require a lot of information and data as well. You have to
Yeah,
have enough information to modulate that. So to know the limits, it's kind of hard because you see all these all these kind of actual events and things are happening where people are actively chasing after these supposedly new technology and new paradigm shifts. is that you see it happening in real times. And that's just greed as well, right? So how these people aren't moderating themselves, the market is not moderating itself. So it's like, yeah, you see all these behaviors, and sometimes it's so easy to get drawn into that with the whole FOMO thing, right? Like you feel like, oh, I'm being left out. But not really. It's like it's just everybody chasing after what seems to them easy money, right? Or easy kind of, oh, everybody's betting these days. It's just all about betting. Like people are just
Mm.
betting this is gonna be this, and that and there are people who have informations and they can bet better than you, and that's what they're all doing, right? With the whole insider trading, with the in the stock market and all that.
Yeah. No, yeah, these days I wouldn't trust any information at this point.
No,
I
it's
because I tried for many years and none of it is reliable. I think essentially everything is just somebody spinning something. And whenever you see
yeah,
information, it's already been curated and designed for you to see it
yeah.
that way. And I don't trust nothing anymore.
Because but that's the systematic problem. It's like, well, somebody had to process those data, right? So we don't have like this is like what? This is the how many hands of information is this? It's not just second hand. It's like,
Yeah,
the
and you
one
don't even
thousands,
know. You don't
the
even
one
know.
thousands handover. The information may change because it's, maybe there are errors. Just like we can have genetic mutations. Even in nature, it happens, right? When something goes wrong, something get not coded in the right way. So, right, you can have a typo, and that changes everything. And so, by the time that you learn about certain information, that's already been, it's been propagated through all the channels. That means
Yeah,
people are
because if you
processing it.
think the way it kind of forms and the way it trickles down to you, yeah, as you mentioned, this it passes so many hands, but how it originates. Imagine the people who do insider trading, how they do it. They know stuff for sure. They know for a fact because the decision makers, they talk to them and they're like, "Oh, you're gonna do this, right? For sure. Yeah, okay. We're friends, right? Okay, good. I'm gonna buy it then. You buying too? Perfect." And that's the only people who win because they're the
Yeah.
ones who are making the moves that move everything else, right? When you hear about it, it's too late.
Too
It's
late.
yesterday. It's
Yeah.
yesteryear. It's last year's news. It's way too late. Oh, that just I at some point, like I don't know, when you're young and when you just don't know how the world works, you're just so hopeful and optimistic. It's like, ooh, I'm gonna make some money.
Yeah, it's like people really simplify it too much, right? We
Yeah,
tend to simplify everything as this,
it's
oh, it's just
never
like
really that simple.
it's never simple. It's almost like threading a needle in a haystack. It's like it's all the parts that has to be right for a certain result to happen. It's this is why life it's so chaotic that
It
to
is.
maintain any semblance, it's a feat to
Yeah,
kind of parse out all these things and kind of not go insane because
yeah.
if you think too much about it, so that again, moderate yourself.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. I was just talking to my dad extensively the other day, just because we kind of touched on politics, we talked about the stuff in the world. And we started talking, I'm just realizing, wow, we're talking about, I don't have too many like really extensive conversations with my dad very often, but I realized like, wow, we talked about all this stuff and it's very, very negative, because you just talk about what's in the world, the politics, and
Right.
I'm just told my dad, like, yeah, living is kind of difficult. And you're like, yeah, man, it's kind of like this just this require everything is like a battle, for a regular
Yeah.
person, just everything is kind of like a challenge, you don't know who you trust, whatever. It requires so many actions from you for every single thing. Like everything is a little struggle, um, which kind of is this whole additional topics we've been talking about. It's a perfect segue to that next item on the list. And these are not in any particular order. I think these are generally in the order that I added them to the list. So more or less chronological order. But this one says, I try to keep it real at all times. There is too much bullshit out there as it is. And this is just a line that I put down in a list, right? But it's a thought essentially that came to my mind at some point, right? This is a funny thing. Obviously, I don't. You can't keep it real at all times. That just happens in the movies. But I thought it's a funny idea because I do like to think it's something to strive towards, like keeping it real. Because I would say it's true that I dislike bullshit. I despise bullshit. I'm a fairly direct person because that just complicates everything. That makes everything much more frustrating for everybody involved. And I'm just never really that motivated to spin anything up just because it takes so much extra time and energy and makes everything so much more complex. I don't like complexity. I like to simplify things. So keeping it real, that's kind of what it means to me. Just kind of being direct, straightforward, and you know that does require a certain amount of awareness and consciousness and fearlessness, I guess, too. But I kind of like to think of it as a value, a value to adopt, to keep it real.
Because there's too many lies, right? And
Yeah.
that has negative consequences for everybody, and especially for the people who are lying, right? It's because you making all that additional structure in your head. Imagine keeping a lie takes a lot of mental effort to like get all the facts straight, which is why this is what sometimes the police does, right? When they interrogate, there are methods by which you kind of tease out these
Right.
lies, and like they couldn't keep the structure because you keep
Yeah, yeah,
poking at it at different angles, and they're like, oh, it doesn't make logical sense, and therefore
yeah,
you're
yeah.
lying. And
The
the
mind
people,
can't like maintain a
yeah,
consistency and coherent structure by like keeping that made up thing there at all times. Like,
yeah,
if you attack it from different angles, it obviously doesn't add up.
right. And the person who are lying and trying to kind of keep it afloat. And then when they finally like they will realize they've been had. Like the police knows they're lying because they suddenly realize the logical parts that, oh, they poke all the holes now. So I lost. For
Yeah.
sure they don't trust me. For sure they know that I'm lying.
Yeah.
So then it's like there's no point in keep going because some people continue to do like
Right,
despite the
right.
fact they're being
Because
they're just
eventually
playing
it becomes
dumb.
ridiculous.
It's so ridiculous, right? So it's like that. Like the logical structure, like it will hit you. It's like, oh shoot, right?
Hmm.
So that's why a master liar that takes a lot of skill. Like imagine being able to hold a lie so well that everybody believes it.
Oh, yeah.
You almost have to play it for real. Somehow you're convince yourself is real, right? But for most people, the most energy efficient way to be is just being truthful. Because the more that you're trying to hide it, the more it costs you, right? Energy wise, to all the different levels it costs you more energy to maintain that than just the simple truth, which is it is the real thing. You don't even need like once you realize something is true, it's almost like there's no additional baggage or additional things that you have to attach to that because it's just the truth, right? There's no mental energy needed to parse anything other than, okay, I see this is fundamental reality, right? So to maintain that is you have an ease of life. You're not trying to complicate everything and build up all these fake structures just to
Yeah.
maintain it.
The funny thing is about the term bullshit. I recently started watching the John Vervaeke's series on YouTube, the Awakening to the Meaning of Crisis, or the Crisis of Meaning, I think that's
Uh-huh.
called. It's a pretty extensive series that he has there based on the course he teaches in U of T, and it's great. Like it's very, very comprehensive. And I'm still in the early stages, but I think it's like in just the fourth episode out of dozens, he introduces like with full seriousness this technical term of bullshit. Like he puts it on the blackboard, it's like, all right,
Uh,
today we cover this is bullshit, and he like names it as like one of the culprits to the meaning crisis, because essentially it contributes to you not knowing what to trust, what's real, what's relevant, what's valuable, important. It's kind of like an early version of AI slop. It's the noise. It's the noise which drowns out the signal, which you don't know how to parse through, which requires you to deal with it and try to figure out what is this? Is this bullshit? And I'm excited to see where it goes next. So we'll probably do some episodes and some of the insights from that series. But yeah, it's that serious. It's that serious. Is that it's like contributes to the modern meaning crisis. bullshit.
Just too much bullshit. Yeah, it's
Yep.
because it's just floating around everywhere, right? It's like what who, I mean, can you pinpoint where it's all coming from? But it's like everywhere. It's like whether that's work, that's any
Yeah.
sort of interactions out there. I mean, I don't know, maybe we're getting more cynical, but it just seems like, well, you're just bullshitting me, right?
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
every time you go out there, it's just like, okay, there's got to be some sort of BS happening.
Yeah. You know what? A good way to think about what it is. It's like when you meet a person, you say, or you make a friend, or your existing friend suddenly joins an MLM organization, and then they talk to you, and you realize at some point that they're just trying to recruit you, and they're like now they're this
Yeah.
zombie person who just wants to recruit people to their MLM business. Bullshit, because what they're doing is they're like, oh, we're just being friends, right? But I'm doing this cool thing, and if you just join, it's gonna be like, and you get the percentages. It's bullshit, because the whole thing is that you're pretend it's a pretense. We're pretending to be friends now, it's ulterior motives. I would say, right? It's not being straightforward, and I don't like it. I think it's like, this is where, like, I prefer that everybody was just direct, because in an ideal world, you say, I want this. Do you want this? No? Okay, goodbye. You want this? Great, let's go. How simple is that? How simple is that? What is the problem with this? Can we
Uh,
just do that?
just do yes and no, right?
Yeah.
Just go back to
Yes?
yes and no.
No? Okay, cool. It's fine. It's no problem. What's the problem?
The problem is in modern day is the yes no. In one sentence is yes and no. You know, it's never yes or no. It's yes and no.
Mhm.
So I just think that look, everything is connected, right? So we're connected to the economic situation, and that kind of make everybody anxious. That make everybody go a little bit crazy. And therefore, it amps up all the BS. It amped up
Mhm.
all the lies because people try to get more money, right? It's like, oh, the economy is bad. Well, I'm not making as much as before, and therefore I must start doing BS now because I need to up my quota. I need to up my, whatever. I mean, all companies are trying to maximize profit. They never think like, oh, yeah, things are tough. Let's just weather it out and then make our company better by serving our customers. No, they're just like, well, let's just scalp the customers. They have more money that we can take away from, and we can just save money by cutting costs and basically for the burden of inflation or whatever to the consumer. That's what's been happening, right? So it's that cycle of the BS are up because the times are tough. And I think the more, well, I'm not saying that what the BS is gonna go away when things are going well. No, I mean maybe even more so, maybe even more BS. But like at least, but the thing is like everybody is trying to, and see this is the problem with the system. The system itself encourages BS. It encourages all these shady tactics because why else would they exist, right? If the condition isn't there for these behavior to exist, then they would
Mhm.
not exist. Both allowing it to happen and also it's just the modern structure of how we do with our time and our lives.
Yeah,
It's
but
all about money now.
this is where it's like it always goes back for me to the whole paradox of choice thing, because it feels like, to me, it still feels like there's got to be a choice, because surely here we are, if we're talking about these things, we're bringing them up to the surface of consciousness, and we're constantly saying and choosing, and hopefully we're not BSing right now, but we're saying like, this is important and this is a better course of action, and let's play the long-term game, and let's simplify. Yeah, these are ideas, but surely you can say, I do think these ideas are important and I choose to espouse them and walk the walk, even though it is difficult. It's still doable, right? The problem, I think, is that there's a cost to it. It costs you personally to be on the level, to adhere to all these rules and standards. This is why, like, all these spiritual paths, they have giant lists of, like, these are the nine commandments. These are the all the rules that you have to, like, even in simple things like, oh, you need to be vegetarian, in things like Buddhism and yoga. That's what they're promoting. And I've had many discussions with people and saw many opinions and takes on it, which are infinite. You can have any objective or subjective opinion, and you can justify it like with any point. For example, I tried vegetarianism, didn't work out for me. Like I could not do it. Like it just physically I could not do it. I could not find a way to do it without suffering. Like it would induce suffering in me. So how much do you owe, the world the rightness? Because it's one thing that somebody says being vegetarian is the must have. But things like this, like what we're discussing, it's definitely practical, right? If you are doing business, if you concentrate on the long-term strategy and you start with that and you design for that, your business is going to be better off long term. But it's not easy. The same thing as maybe a vegetarian thing makes perfect sense, right? Not hurting animals, great. Maybe overall long term, like maybe you get the best karma if you do that. But not only that's first of all more difficult to ascertain as complete truth, you know? Like the stuff we talked about, that's at least like there was scientific experiments and we could see that, yeah, this makes sense if you use this strategy, it's more successful long term. But here it's more of first of all, you need to believe that so much, but then to execute it at your own cost, like to what extent, right? To what extent are you willing to pay the price for all these correct and better decisions? I guess that's where the short term, long term trade off comes in, right? Because you can't, like, you're not Jesus. You can't be doing it to the full extent, ideal human, benevolent to a fault, kind of can't really do it because it's also not fully possible. It's not as simple as that, right? Life is not as black as white as that. It's like just do the right choice in every situation. Like you're fallible, in some situations you reach a limit where like I can't do it. I'm gonna have to kill this guy. No, to take an extreme example. That's it. That's my limit. I hit it.
Hey, but that's the individual's decision there.
Yeah. But you are kind of forced toward it, right? Like with
Yeah,
the examples of with the sleep debilitation I had, my nervous system was such in a crappy state that I would literally become just a terrible person to even interact with, right? So that's not my fault per se, I didn't choose to be that. It's just everything happens towards that, and now I don't have a choice because it's like my nervous system overrides it. Like I can't think straight. It's that. And I think that irrational state, more people are like, we're more often in it than we realize. That's why, to me, this whole kind of nervous system management stuff becomes so central because, like, wow, like I realized how fundamental it is because everything else, like, you can't even think straight. But even then, right, there's extent to it. There's an extent to how smart you are, to how aware you are. It's kind of like I keep learning in playing chess, right? And I keep being aware that, yeah, you need to, the better player is able to calculate further ahead, right? Again, thinking about more and more long term, because
yeah,
that's how you become successful. You're not only thinking like, oh, I'm just going to get this little pawn. No, you need to get the king.
yeah.
That's a whole game you need to plan out,
All that
right?
sequence, right? All that
Right.
sequence in your head has to be done exactly right. And you have to fool your opponent thinking that
Yeah.
you're not thinking that's the exact way that you're gonna win.
Exactly. So it's both to design a strategy, keeping in mind that you have to conceal it from another person. There's so many layers that I can't even think that way. Like I'm realizing like, wow, I guess
I
I'm dumb
tried it,
because
man. I
yeah,
tried it as like, oh, hold on, this is what we're doing? Oh my
yeah,
God,
it's
I can't.
impossible to keep. You have so much
Yeah,
space in your head, so
right.
much imagination to keep in mind all of that and keep all the things moving. Dynamically updating your plan with the situation unfolding because you don't know how the other person would gonna take. That's where intelligence comes in. So if you're playing against like a really smart or experienced and skillful player, you're gonna be like a child to them essentially because you won't even see what they're doing. Not only there are like enough tips and tricks you can do and strategies of how to provoke certain things and control certain things on the board, but the mastery is in combining and seeing all of that at all like in the same time at and calculating as far in advance as possible. Because if you have that long-term strategy, say like you were able to do it a way where you can see, oh, I can do a mate in 10 moves, right? You now need to make a move. So you still have 10 moves in front of you, right? You need to make a move which, ideally, from the standpoint of your opponent, doesn't make any sense. It's like, it doesn't mean anything. He just goes there because I don't know, like he thinks he's gonna get my piece or something. But that puts on a whole chain of events that unfolds in 10 moves making the mate. It's just I have no idea how you do it because 10 moves away, it's gonna be a different situation. Like how are you gonna ensure that pieces move toward the plan you execute? That's the real mastery, right? You have to account for what your opponent gonna do. You have to like
Yeah.
project, okay, if I put it here, it's gonna put it there, which means he put it here, and then you need to do it on 10 steps ahead, and you need to make it so surefire. It's kind of like you're exploiting the psychology of the other person, because if you're making a move that endangers their queen, everybody wants to protect their queen, right? Because it's the most versatile piece on the board. So if you attack their queen, you now know that they have the pressure and motivation to save the queen, and means like they will move it here. Okay, if they move it here, you have the next step, and that's the chain you're gonna have. That's too much, man. I don't know how to do that. Like that's I don't know if I'm even going to be able to grow that capacity, because that seems like some kind of a mental capacity that you're going to have to have. But it's very fun. It's very fun learning. Like I'm glad I'm doing it, because I think it's kind of like it does seem like a transferable skill, because it does make you think ahead. It makes you
Yeah,
think like, okay, what are
you
the
can plan.
consequences of my actions and what are going to be the actions of the other person? And you keep all of that in mind. I think it's a transferable skill.
Yeah. This I guess the battle is always sort of this short term versus long term, right?
Yeah.
People have all these ideas about I want to do this for the short term, this midterm, the long term. And then it's always the kind of you face to face with the fact that as you're doing it, you're constantly it's an uphill battle, right? Your own kind of laziness, your own sort of
Yeah.
preconceived notions, and a lot of things changes, and there are circumstances happening that kind of interrupts your plan, or so the balance, like, yeah, sometimes you don't want to feel like you're too regimented, but other times you feel like, oh, if we don't have enough regimen, then that also is a problem where you
Yeah.
lose focus, and
Yeah. You still have to
vice
have that
versa.
that balance, yeah, that moderation. But it's applicable. The more I think about it, it's applicable pretty much everywhere. A good example is also like a job, because if you're not thinking for long term, you could be working for it's a dead end job that doesn't lead anywhere. You're getting some paycheck and some money, but that's not as good as it can be if you thought long term. If you had specific criteria that made sure, oh, this company is going somewhere, they care about people and they are promoting their people and they're allowing you to grow your career and stuff. My previous work experience was like that. I like very shortly after being hired there, I realized like, oh, this company's not going anywhere. There's absolutely no way. Like you see the red flags, you see the forest for the trees. And the thing is, every time that happened to me, that type of feeling, I was always right. It happened the same thing with the projects, with the companies, because it's kind of obvious. I don't know, at least it's obvious to me, because it, things don't behave that way when everything's fine. And when everything is compounding and it works out and everybody's happy and things are improving, it's visible. But when it's just one bullshit after the other, there's no, it's not going to improve. So it's that. So ideally, you wouldn't stick in such a job, right? Because it's not going anywhere, and you could be in a better place, be growing towards something. So that growth and being on a trajectory where you're gonna end up somewhere better, I think it's important. It's important to consider that future there, right? Not exactly thinking like specific picture, this is what it's gonna look like, but at least having some signs and the trajectory of moving in the right direction. Without that, it's too much of a short-term risk. That's where the
It's
balance has to be thought
Yeah,
about.
the more I think about it, the more that I kind of this is akin to basically risk management, which is
Yes,
what
absolutely.
everybody should
You
kind
need
of
to do
put
it.
everything in that context. Like I think a lot of people don't consider it, and therefore they're just gambling with a lot of their major decisions because they just think that They only are thinking in one dimensions or two dimensions. They haven't thought about it in terms of like you actually need a systematic way to look at this in terms of risk and reward, right? How do you manage your risk? And it's a whole kind of framework that you kind of put your head into to analyze every aspect of your life in that kind of manner. Because if you don't, then everything seems like, oh, this seems like a good idea, or that come to you is like, oh, maybe I'll do this. But then what about the risk? What about the, it's a good way to think about it. Like, doesn't mean that this is exactly, it's a way to look at life and sort of like, oh, okay, if you, in that lens, it's like, oh, that's interesting. This
Mm-hmm.
choice has this much risk profile versus that.
It's
It's
that essentially. It's at one point I realized, like, I think I even considered there is a way, a thing you can do is like a decision journal. It's a way to where you evaluate a decision in a specific way, right? Kind of like a little framework, but then you document what was the decision, how you went about it, how you made it, so later you can go back and analyze it. Because the way it unfolds, essentially, it's like a meta process, right? You analyze your thinking, your decision making to understand, did I do it right? Did I not, did I consider all the right things? So you can keep growing on it. And I never quite implemented it. I wanted it, like, to do it, but it's just another thing to do. But it sounds like a great idea, because at least to do it with big important decisions, like probably like with this car purchase thing, I'll probably do it. I'll design some kind of like, okay, I fucked up here. This is to not do that.
proper risk of assessment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Because I realized essentially if I was doing this car purchase from scratch right now, what I'd do, I'd devise a whole script of what I would need to do because there are many steps and some of them are more important than others. But it's things like if you, when you, before signing any contract, specifically discuss this and acquire consent from this, right? It's that because without that, it's too many steps. And because I don't do it every day, I don't know, I don't remember. I can't track all of them. So I would literally have to create a mini project for big purchases and processes like that. It's kind of like inevitable that you do have to do some project management in your life, dude, like that. Seriously, because you're
Yeah.
going to benefit from it. This is what it looks
Yeah.
like. You're going to have to do a little risk management, a little process definition and design, but you're going to be better off because without it, this is what it looks like. You
Yeah.
come around and you're like, yeah, everything's going to work out for me, right? No, there's too many complexities, too many interests at play. And if you don't think about it at all, you're going to be the chump. This is what it
Yeah.
looks like.
Because, it's almost like everything is price discovery. In,
Yeah,
in
yeah.
stocks is about finding the price, right? In life, the same thing. Finding the price, because think about it, in every kind of interaction that you
What does
have,
it really
uh,
cost?
right? If you have the informational disadvantage, in this case, the dealership knows more about the process than you do.
Right.
Like, you can bet your ass they're good, they're scamming you because they
Yeah.
have more information. Why
Exploiting
wouldn't they not?
information. Yeah.
Why wouldn't they exploit it?
Yeah.
So for you to know the number, the price, you're gonna have a lot more information. You need to know the whole process of how a car sale is being done, meaning you got to get to that point. You have to level yourself up to their level, meaning that you know what they know, then they cannot BS you, right? Then you can discover the price by which you can have the most advantageous price. But how much price are you willing to pay for that? Because you need to start learning about stuff, that's spending your own time learning about the process so you know more than them or at least same level to be able to deal with them where you go to them and they're like, oh, I can't BS this guy because he knows what I'm talking about. So he's definitely going to meet you where at your desirable price, basically, because he has to kind of lower his standard because he's fighting a better opponent than somebody who knows like, what? I don't know. Oh, I just want to buy a car, sir. You know, it's right. They see you as the idiot if
Yeah.
you like when you're not armed with knowledge, right? They're like, oh, this is a chump. I can take this guy, for a ride. But that's what happens. And these people in that environment, they're trained to do that. They're salesmen. They're that whole job is just BS. It's just you need to
This is
make be
why I
more
don't like
BS.
salesmen. I just don't like them because it's naturally predatory.
Yeah,
Like I know there, of course, there are good ones which have some integrity and ethics, but that's essentially what would require. It would require such a high level of ethics and morality from a person that, yeah, that they do it right because um I mean, again, I think of myself where like I wouldn't be able to do that. It doesn't make sense to me because for me, it feels bad. Isn't that what's called conscience? Is that, do people not have that?
But they have quotas, right? They have quotas to meet, and they're like, oh, for me to do this, well, I'm forced to lie about it because I need to get that target. If people just don't want to buy it, if I don't convince them,
Yeah.
then I don't make that sales. I don't make the commission. I don't make the thing. I'm gonna be scolded
But
by my supervisors, or
what's there where that personal choice and responsibility comes in because you still have that choice. It's just you're willing to cross the boundaries
right? Because it
to
benefits you.
yeah, to benefit yourself, and you're don't care that it is hurting other people. It does. Like in this situation, I am like what the buying the car, I am paying much more money than I should because the markup the dealership is getting out of this whole thing is like a lot. So objectively, it's possible to find a better deal and pay much less money for this same car, right? It's just I don't know how to do it. I
More
don't have the
effort,
skill.
more effort on your part, yeah, to get to that.
You need to be able to like do all the mini conversations and somehow convince the other person, right? To me, the whole thing doesn't make sense because I just don't know generally how to negotiate. At some point, I'll need to figure out how to solve it because my whole negotiation is, yeah, you want to get an infinite amount for the car. I want to get the car for free. What do we do next? How do we, what's the next step? I fail there. Like the whole thing logically doesn't make sense to me. Like it's an emotional engagement where you have to like, I don't know what you do. You have to flirt with him or something. I think you convince them like, hey, we're buddies, right? Just give me a good price. But you're a
It's
stranger. You don't know anybody. You don't know each other. So how do you do it?
I mean, I face this all the time, how to price my services, how to price it. It's always a question. It's like, yeah, I want to get more, but I also don't want to be unreasonable where people go, oh, you're shitting me, right? If
Yeah.
you're at that level where if
But
somebody says to me, you're shitting me, I'm like, okay, I've gone too far, right? That would be
wait, am I shitting them? Hold on.
because for a person to, but then again, it's like, okay, well, for different people, there's a different level of shitting me. It
Yes.
could be actually reasonable, but they're like, because their information that they have, they're like, oh, you're shitting me.
So
It
I
got to
think
be
that
lower than this.
the only way really is then filling it out as in terms of like asking about it like openly, right? Like, can we do
Right.
this? Can we do that? So it's asking. Huh. Yeah, it's
But
always
but
just
but but
about
you see,
asking.
but the thing is, this is funny because in my original cultural influences, it, you always negotiate, but here people don't. In
Hmm.
Canada, like all people are just like, okay, your price is your price. So whatever you say, some people still do negotiate, but a lot of people they're like, the price that
Yes.
you gave is
That's
the price that you gave. So for me, I'm like potentially any price that I quote, I may lose that business. I might lose that
okay.
job because they think it's too high, but they don't give me back a response at all. It's like you just yes or no.
That's
So it's like I'm
true.
guessing the
Yeah.
price. Okay, I'm guessing you how much can you afford to
It's a
pay?
different game
What's the
here.
situation is your situation? How much are you moving? How much are all this stuff, right? I'm gauging to the price that I'm quoting, how far the distance and all that stuff, right? But essentially, I'm guessing. Is this person okay with this price? But
Yeah.
then but it's like basically all or nothing. I don't have a recourse. Once I post that, it's done because these
Like
people
it's
don't
not
give me
even acceptable for you here. You can't say like, "Oh, I can lower the price," right? Because that
right. So
people
it's
don't do
like
that around
they
here.
don't do that around. They don't because anytime you deal with anywhere else, they haggle, right? They
Right.
negotiate. It's like whatever you price
Yep.
you throw, they're like, oh, how about this? And how about this? How about this? Right until you find it, and that's normal in those places. But here in the West, overall, it's like they treat it like, well, that's you're telling me the truth, right? That's your price. So what do you mean? There's no negotiation. Like, why would you be willing to go lower? It's kind of like
In Russia, it's the same thing. Like we have, it's much more common. We have the whole plate like bazaar. There's bazaars where you can go and it's like you can negotiate with
haggle,
folks
yeah.
because yeah, just haggle, negotiate, and it's fine. I met one woman from Russia with whom I hung out once here in Toronto, and she told me like, oh, I love going to Chinatown and just negotiating with folks
Just
there. It's like
haggle.
it's so fun and because they haggle, right? And you can
Yeah.
haggle. And it's kind of like and some people apparently like it because
Yeah,
you
it's
can.
like a fun
It's like a
little,
game, right? It's like,
yeah,
oh, can I get a better price? And if it's an experienced seller, like that, they know they can also appreciate
value.
like, oh, okay, that the
Yeah.
person can like they want to get a good value. There's a certain admiration in that too. So yeah, gotta learn to do that, man. Like it's gotta be like the best skill in life to have because everything is a negotiation. Everything is
Thing is
some kind of
negotiation.
track.
You negotiate everything, right? From your end to your end, the relationship that you have with everybody. Your family, you negotiate, right? With your friend, you negotiate. You with strangers, of course, you negotiate. So it's like, so basically, the quality, how you want to go through life is, I guess, the best result will be to know as much as you can how you can negotiate all these different fields. And that's very hard to achieve, obviously, for one person to do. I mean, because we all have blind spots, right? No matter how smart you think you are, there's going to be some information you don't know, and somebody else might have that, and you're always going to be at a disadvantage in certain degree. So then again, I guess it's not really about min-maxing in any way. It's
No,
just
yeah,
kind
there's
of,
some kind of underlying wisdom to this.
yeah, it's I guess is a part of being truthful, right? The idea that you want to find the real value of what anything is, because we're all making these judgmental decisions in terms of what we think is important, what's not. And we just kind of, I guess in modern society, what happened is we kind of package all these values in material things. And that is causing us we're in a bit of a pickle psychologically because now everything has a price, right? Everything is attached to a price, and we're
Oh yeah.
kind of more or less moved by the physical nature of reality, where we're now fundamentally at a periods in a cycle where we're realizing the importance of these physical, things like commodities, things that we need to survive, right? All these things are happening in the world because we realize, oh, we cannot go without these. So these are the fundamental kind of values that we must have, and not the kind of experimentation that we went for this long time, ever since the introduction of computers and internet, where it's all digitized. It's all kind of numbers. We've been playing this numbers game for a long time, for a while, and now it seems the number doesn't go up anymore, right? As we have found out, right? It's like it doesn't line up. Things are being done where you can call it the human greed, if you will, or in all these kind of funny games in the stock market, in the general economy. This is what we've been doing. All the countries are complicit in all this, right? Because everybody's playing the game. Say, oh, you're doing that, I'm doing this, and then they have their strategies to play and like how we want to play this chessboard on this chessboard. They're doing these strategic moves, and that affects a lot of different metrics. And now we're in this world where everybody again is chasing after the next level of the digitization of everything. That's what's happening, right? With the whole this talk about blockchain again, right? This whole idea that, oh, we want to digitize everything. Everything is a record now, trying to get all that encoded. And I mean, that changes a whole, so people are fighting, they're creating values, yes, but we don't even know what that even means. And we're still doing it
Yeah, the
as if it's
repercussions of
like,
all of that.
yeah, this is kind of, I think recently, just overall, I think a lot of people are kind of pushing back at this, right? Like we need, again, these new things are being done, but regulations and things are not fast enough to get there. And we have all these kind of halfway legal things are being done, because of with this AI development and everything else, and all the money that goes into it, all the infrastructure, what have you. If it's a murky kind of thing, and a lot of people are making bets, but we're actually shifting the entire economic output and everything towards this. Now, this is a huge risk as well, right? What if it
Yeah.
doesn't pan out, and that affects everything? It's not just like, oh, the tech sector goes down, but now it's like the tech sector go down, we all go down. So it's like,
Yeah, it's like an investment and a commitment to a certain path, and it's like putting all your eggs in one basket. It introduces a risk of failure that can be catastrophic.
it is because imagine if, say, OpenAI go bankrupt. that's gonna cause a lot of ripple in
That would be
terms of,
interesting.
right, because the amount of money they're losing, the amount of money that they are, like it's where is that
I
money
think
gonna go?
at that point, essentially, they become too big to fail. It's like
Well,
it's
that's
like
what they
these big
say.
companies,
Yeah.
countries would have to essentially prompt up, and support
Yeah.
because they're
So
too fundamental to everything.
it's right because I think the analysis is that, like OpenAI, they're at the forefront, right? They're the first one who kind of created this ChatGPT, and they are still trying to figure out they're on the blazing edge of the technology, right? But they're the sole focus, that's their thing. But all the other companies are just dabbling in it, right? Like Google, right? They're dabbling in this. They spend a certain amount of money into it now, but they have other revenue. So
Right.
they
It's
don't,
just one of the categories of
yeah,
their
so they're not
business.
afraid about, oh, we're not gonna go bankrupt. We're never gonna go bankrupt. This is just we want to kind of leverage and tap into this next level thing. But the problem with OpenAI is their risk profile is way too high because that's all they're doing, and they
Mm.
can't find a model to make money because he's just pouring more resources to ask stupid questions to ChatGPT right now. It's just like everybody's just querying some stupid answers to try to find with the energy that you need. So you can't afford to ask these stupid questions. You actually need the computation to do actually some good stuff, like some actual
Mhm. Yeah,
protein
that's interesting.
folding.
Maybe eventually there will be some kind of criteria for what you can ask.
You can't just ask some stupid questions like what is pizza?
Yeah.
When you're high out of your mind, and you go chat GPT and ask what is pizza? Why is this so good?
Oh, what it might look like in future? They might, kind of like how even all the search engines right now, they essentially use AI at this point. They're built it in. Uh, we might just make it so that there are layers and levels to AI, so that whatever query you ask, there will be maybe some kind of auto moderation mechanism that will determine which model to use. If it's like
Right.
can be answered with a simple search, it will be guided
Yeah,
towards
yeah, I
that,
think
just
that makes
conserve
sense.
energy.
Yeah.
And if it's something complex and it deemed so, then it warrants upping the calculation levels.
But imagine, right? Every time you just chat GPT, you type your thing, and there's a price
Yeah.
tag that just show up. Like
Yeah.
for you to
Yeah.
ask for this question, are
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
sure? What is pizza? Are you sure you're gonna pay $100 for this? Like, you sure you want the answer?
Yeah, it's kind of like that, right? I've seen that in the generative AI, like where you generate art and video and stuff. There, you pay it with real money essentially, because that stuff does cost a
Money to
lot.
computate.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So there you do literally pay for that, and it's been interesting because I do have to choose, what I do. I can't just like, oh, what does this look like? I have to
Yeah.
really think it out. Okay, what I needed to like, I make it count because I only have a little bit, a fixed amount of currency, so I need to think it through myself enough, which is where it will have to balance out, right? Because we're trying to shift the thinking to AI, but you can't do it. You still have to think out the important parts. This is what I found about from the usage by myself is that you can use it best to fill in the gaps and colors and here and there, but the structure of it, of what you want, you do have to think it out yourself. There's no way around it. That's the biggest part. Without it, you get AI slop. So this is the danger of like that people need to realize that it's kind of going back to the idea that there's no free lunch. You have to do the most difficult and important job yourself always. And if you try to abdicate that and give it to AI, it's a bad idea. It's not going to work out. It's shit.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of debate in terms of, especially now that in the field of arts, like I heard there were cases of people, organizations running awards for the arts, and some of the work are AI generated, and they actually won the top spot.
Mm,
But then people,
yeah.
when they realize, oh, it's actually AI generated, then they had to
That's a di-
reverse the decision, So
okay,
it's
it's different type of art. Like it's like Paralympics, it's going to have to be its own separate thing because it's not the
Yeah,
same.
because otherwise, but see, that's the thing, right? A lot of these hacks will just use these things to kind of generate the stuff and then push it
Yeah,
as like they
and
created
that
it. You know,
That's
it's
disingenuous. Yeah, this
yeah,
is. It's kind of. I see how contentious it is because, like, I do writing and I do use AI in writing, and it's. I don't emphasize it because, like, to me personally, I think that my process is good enough where there's enough of a human input where it's like I'm using it as a supplementary tool to help me do better grammar and stuff. I do think it of that way. Of course, that level is subjective, and this is where it's interesting to think about like how much of a AI involvement is considered to be like a tool that you used in the creation of something versus where's the boundary where it's not yours anymore, where you didn't contribute enough to call it yours. And some people, I guess, could say that the whole thing,
yeah,
doesn't work because you can't
because
find that degree where
yeah, and
yours stop and its begins.
exactly, and people just would rather just put it all in their mind as a
Mm,
label, like use AI, therefore I don't
yeah,
want to touch this because who knows
yeah.
how much is actually his idea or
True, true,
you know?
exactly. You don't know how much actually that person used. And I've seen those reactions online, like where people like straight up allergic, right? They detect anything of AI. And for myself, I don't really think that way. Like if I look at a body of work and I do find something valuable from it for myself, I'm fine with that. But yeah, if it's just obviously stupid, or obviously formulaic, generic sounding without any actual personal insight or anything interesting, yeah, then it's bad. But it's not because it's AI. If a person uses AI and it's still like I can, find it valuable, I'm fine with that. So that means that they used it well enough that at final outcome and final product is good. Then it's not slop. It's just it doesn't matter that they used AI because at the end result is still valuable. It's
Yeah,
like it's
just
like
the
if you could use AI to make a tasty burger. If that was possible, would you care that it was made by AI? No.
you can't tell the difference.
Exactly. It would be a tasty burger to you.
Yeah, that's the interesting talking point about technology. Is like, what about visual effects, right? We've gone a long way from just traditional kind of
Yeah.
practical effects and then go into digital. I mean, digital effects has its own place. It doesn't mean that, oh, just because I think people had this conversation before, right? It's like, oh
Hmm.
yeah, when the practical effect was in vogue, everybody's like, when they start seeing digital stuff, it's like, nah, that's not true.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
gotta
yeah.
make it, you gotta make it with real
That's
thing,
cheating.
That's cheating, yeah. But then now it's everywhere. Even though yes, I still say that practical effect is still a lot better. It used well. It's really enhanced the cinematic experience.
Hmm.
But I get it. Why? Yes, sometimes you need the CGI because like for the shot that you need, for the kind of thing that you need to kind of make a green screen for it.
Yeah,
It's
that's
just
the best tool.
right. So use it well, then yes. But obviously, you're gonna have situations of like this, where all the slop is happening, especially with AI. And it's weird too, because I start finding these AI music online,
Hmm.
where they will even have essentially an hour long thing with a specific kind of mix of, But then over time, when you listen to it, it's like, oh, I can actually tell it's actually AI. I don't know what
Hmm.
it is, but you somehow found like, okay, this does not sound like a real, maybe it's just a repetitiveness to some of it,
Yeah,
or it's
yeah,
the
yeah.
formulaic kind of changes that happens.
Yeah,
But I find that,
I think it's the human mind does detect some kind of pattern that keeps repeating, even though
yeah,
sometimes it's not obvious, and that's what throws you off. Because music, like, it's about feeling, right? And machines,
they just see the
they're just
style,
approximating it.
they
Yeah.
approximate the style, but they don't, So that goes into question, yeah, how much can you will this thing to kind of essentially convince people that you made the most effective effort? Like these tools are just supporting you on that, but you actually, because that can be an acceptable result, right? Because we all use tools. It's not like you can't use any of these to achieve your results, right? But it's the how much. Like at least the person has to kind of see the human spirit behind it, as opposed to
Right.
just generated where it's like, okay, this is what you asked for. The AI just like give you the result for a thing, but they don't have a inside understanding of like, okay, why is it this way?
Yeah.
Or, you know?
It's still like I know I would say that AI is gonna amplify what you give it. Like so if
Mm,
you start with a seed, if you define it well enough, it can amplify it. But if the core message and the core seed is itself poorly, poorly formulated, not insightful, generic, etc., it's going to amplify that. So this is why I believe AI output still reflects the person. Because if it's a genius using AI, you better believe it, their output is going to be better than a dumb person's output,
Yeah,
right? So it's still there is a correlation there.
but I just feel like in my personal take, my opinion is that I think when it's used in the arts, it's very risky. Because it's one thing I understand that, okay, you use AI to like for some kind of like data mining or whatever. Like, yeah, sure, they can help you a lot in that because those are repetitive tasks. Yeah, you can let the computer do it. You don't have to do it. Humans don't have to do that. But when it comes to the arts, it's very hard to say. Like we were saying before, people judge when they see, oh, is AI generated or is involved with AI, they just automatically say no to it because they couldn't gauge the artistry, right? So in the same matter, if you use AI in any way, it feels like it's very risky and hard to gauge. Okay, well, yes, one can argue like, well, I put my soul into this. The AI just helped generate the stuff, but then people might not read it that way, right? So there is also that kind of
Yeah, like
action
what does it
reaction.
mean to put your soul into it, right? If you do art from scratch, you do put your soul into it because that's like the only way to do it. But you can still be an artist and for your art to be crappy no matter what you do, right? Speaking of which, we haven't talked about Hitler this episode yet. So this is the cue, right? He was an artist, and look what happened. So it's not about just doing it yourself always, right? It's about mm, the core of it. So, for example, if you can make a picture with AI, and if you are able to define every single aspect of what you want the final picture would be, you could define it and do it yourself, and it's done, and you've done it yourself. That's going to be unique for sure. But if you define all the same parameters and give it to AI, it will be a different picture. But if it hit all those points that you wanted to, all those criteria that you wanted to bake into your artwork, is it like, is the output still like, is it completely worthless because it's just made by AI, even though you're the one who have the taste and the expertise to define all those components that would make it into good art. It's a different artwork. It is compiled by AI. But without you defining all of that in that combination, that artwork would not exist. So from that, this is how I think about it. And that's why I think it's still your art. It's just the AI is now a tool, similarly to how we have digital programs to make digital effects. And that is art because it still requires a human input, human actions. It's just how much of it is automated, right? And now we're talking about this. What is that degree of automation?
Yeah.
But at the core of it, what you automated execution, but the ideas at the core, that's still what matters. Because if you put a bunch of people in front of AI and ask them to do a creative, competition, there will be losers and will be winners because there is a better way to use the tool and a worse way to use the tool. So there's still mastery involved, still ingenuity involved, and still creativity involved. So it's still
Right.
art, but I would say it's a different category of art. It needs to be its own. Yeah, it's not fair
But
to do it
but
the
right
same art
now,
as
I think the
traditional.
problem is because people are trying to kind of let it pass as real, human art. They lie
Yeah,
about it. They
that's
don't
not
tell
good.
you
Yeah, you
they
shouldn't
don't
do
tell
that.
you that, oh, I use AI to make this. They don't say that. They just always want to make it like, oh, well, I actually make this,
Yeah,
you
no,
know?
that's not the same.
Yeah. But that's
That's
what's happening. So
yeah,
this has
that's not
caused the
fair.
problem right now. It's just people are asking, people's reception to it are negative because people are passing it off as, so it's a lie. So that's what people don't like. It's like, okay, if you say that, oh, I use AI to make this, it is an AI art, people can still appreciate, oh, wow, like that's cool. Like you actually,
Yeah, yeah.
even though
No,
it's AI,
that's what it
you,
should be. Yeah, it's
right,
people being
just not upfront about it. They lie about
yeah
it,
being unethical. Essentially, they're doing they're kind of like being cheaters in a video game, right? It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm doing all these skills myself. I'm making all these points myself. No, that's just not the reality. That is not accurate.
But that's what a lot of people do, right? You see all this is the same thing as all these fake fake tech bros and making videos of them driving like fancy cars or owning this and that, but they don't have the money. They borrow the money to show some fake
Yeah,
lifestyle just
yeah.
so that they can bamboozle you onto some Ponzi scheme, right? That's also happening. That's also people. You're like, hey,
But
I have all.
again, the short-term thinking, right? It's a
Yeah,
short-term thinking because there's no way it's gonna work out. What do you think? How do you think it ends? It ends it happily ever after? No.
but there's some people, I guess, who kind of tap into the right systems, then it does still happen, right? With all these actually major things such as crypto and whatever. I think a lot of people they are able to make a lot of money but they're liars. But that's
Yeah,
somehow they're able to get that money because of they're able to manipulate the sentiments and what have you.
they'll get what's coming to them.
Well,
I do believe in karma.
I hope, but it does not seem like that's happening, right? I mean, Jesus, right now,
Well,
people are
some of
getting
them
away.
do.
A lot of people get away with stuff, man, for long enough that
Sam Altman style, right? He didn't get away with it.
yeah, well, now he's in hot water because Jesus, how is he able to continue all this stuff, right? And something's gonna change. I don't think they're gonna survive without, massive payouts, and that's what the people are saying. Oh, the government is gonna bail them out because they can't let them fail. And in a way, it's kind of true because now the government is spending
Wait,
money.
did they
It's
say Sam Altman?
That's what he said.
Wait, who is that?
The OpenAI
No, that's the wrong names.
Jesus, who are you talking about? We're
Because
talking
we're
about
talking about
OpenAI.
no, we were talking about crypto. I meant to say the guy who got
Oh, the
busted and,
guy,
and went
the
to
the
jail.
FTS guy. It's Sam.
What's his name? He's also Sam, right?
Yeah, Friedman.
Yeah, yeah,
See, I don't even remember the guy's name. This is like,
yeah,
yes,
yeah.
I should
No, Sam
remember.
Altman. No, no, no,
Oh my God.
no shade thrown there. No,
No, but he's also Sam Altman is in hot water still right now because
yeah, but he's
OpenAI is
not
having
like
big
he's
problems.
not trying to like.
But at least not. Yeah, right. Yeah. Not like that. But I don't know. Is it though? Maybe he
We don't
is.
know. You
We
never
don't
know.
know.
It's like the other guy that he also until it got uncovered, right? That's the part that you never know who is
Yeah.
scamming you.
So it's like this is how I start thinking about like, okay, everybody is scamming you,
Yeah.
right? Everybody. It's to the extent
In fact,
maybe
I'm scamming you right now with this
right.
podcast
I think that's what also what's happening. Yeah, exactly. You know?
because you think this is just you're talking to a friend, right?
Yeah, and then this is out there
And then
for people to see, It's you see, exactly. We're all, exploiting everybody. That's
yeah,
just kind of the fundamental part of, I guess it's just we're trying to just be like, don't be an asshole about it, right?
yeah.
Like
Try not
try
to,
not to be an asshole about it. Like
yeah.
yes,
At
things are
least
what
try
they
not to
are.
go to that "Are you shitting me" level, right? Because
Yeah,
that's where it's just like that's just too much.
but right now it's so easy to get there, right? Because generally people's alarm bells are just
Yeah,
always on. They're just
people's
like they're
people's
more willing to
patience
say.
is running out.
In the past, sure, nobody gonna say, "Are you shitting me?" But
Yeah,
now
the
it's
the pain threshold, yeah, is kind of it's much lower these days. Is that people are like, no, 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 no. This is we gotta do better than this.
so I don't know. I feel like right now it's all about survive, right? It's that mentality. Everybody is just running that mentality, and there's nothing wrong with that. And this is what you should be doing. Everybody need to consider, okay, where am I at? What are they trying to feed me? They feed you all these propagandas and all these stuff. You gotta have to think for yourself. And sometimes it's I don't know how you're gonna how what's the process by which you can deduce truth. How do you arrive at the truth, right? It seems like almost impossible because
Well,
there's
that's
just
what
too
we're
many
doing on this podcast. Welcome to the desert of the real.
the real world.
Yeah, that's what it looks like. You have to constantly consider everything that's going on and all possible motivations and angles and trends. But that's so overwhelming. That's so much information. It's like, and as we've established, I think on the previous couple of videos that we recorded, is that it's impossible to track anyway. It's like it's uncertainty, right? It's uncertainty is still that at the end of the day, you do get that. It's like everything is a gamble. There's only these little weights and little signals. It's like, oh, this looks promising. But even that is just, maybe there's just salient information, but it's so limited. It's incomplete that you choose it like, oh, okay, that looks right, right? And you just make that bet. But that's not truth. You don't know enough things because ideally you'd have, it's like objective reality, right? It's out there, but you only have these eyes that filter out this specific amount of light, and that's what you get to see. And what you get to see is what you get to see, and that shapes your worldview.
See, imagine if you're in a position where, okay, you're the leader of a country, and you have all this access to information that normally other people don't, and you try to analyze all this information. And yes, you can make decisions, but the reality is that it's so complex that you don't even know the ramification of what you initiate
Yeah.
will
You
get
can
the
make
result
some
that you want.
projections and assumptions. That's the best, and then you can see if they are come true or not. But it's all a gamble. It's all just a projection and assumption.
Yeah, and that's what's happening in terms of what's going on now with all different countries essentially playing it blind almost. But we're at a point where, the social structure, I mean, the overall structure has been disrupted. And now that we're just trying to figure out, okay, what now? What are we going to do now that the old way is gone, right? People no longer play by the rule anymore because now it's all about survival. It's all each country society is like, okay, well, no more BS. We're just trying to get down to basics, right? And a lot of the basics is about, I don't know, part of it manifests as in fighting over some of these fundamental, you know, from pieces of land to some of these last scraps. And that's kind of human nature, I guess. Because, like, what happens when there's a huge amount of change happening in society over is that they're gonna end up into wars because as time goes bad, so to speak, you have more squabblings, you have more struggles, you have more, so people are willing to fight for it now, right? They're like they think that the survival depends on it, and therefore their way how they think about these things changes. So what they used to value now shifts, and this is the reason that we have this kind of unstable this is an unstable period right now in terms of history, all these changes. Because that's the thing, right? We never had the same parameters from before. Now things are happening way too fast. We have no clue what's going on, how it's gonna, so that uncertainty just makes the world more anxious and you have more of these things happening. Imagine this is like the psychologically reverberation, right? All these wars are happening right now because it's just psychologically every
Yeah,
society are
yeah,
dealing with an
you're
issue
aware of it.
and it boils it over. And sometimes it's just give a certain people excuses to start something, right? It's like we want to have an excuse to actually solve this problem definitively. Like they are attempting to do that, but then you have pushback, of course. So that reverberation is what's happening, and the uncertainty and everything else just makes people irrational, and therefore they make decisions that is gonna cost them down the line. And this is we're seeing the result of it. And the other thing I was looking at is somebody was dissecting. You know how in China there's that one child policy, right? That you
Yeah.
can only have one kid. So my generation, basically my generation's people from the who were born in the 80s. So what happened was somebody took an economical view at this policy, and they actually
Yeah.
found that what happened was at the time China was too poor to support all these people at the time. So therefore, what they did was they make these changes because they want to not have so many mouths to feed because they understood at the time that we're so poor that we can't if we want to develop the country something got to give. So what happens is they took the short-term path. They went with the easiest solution, which is just control the population in terms of birth, right? So
Hmm.
stop the population growth. Therefore, you get savings. You don't have to feed so many mouths, so that money gets
Hmm.
saved, and that's the government can use that to do investments and other stuff, right? But what happened is you don't want to touch populations because when you do that, when you kind of start playing around with the population numbers, 10, 20 years after or 30 years after, you're going to pay the price. But they just kick the can down the road
Hmm.
essentially because, well, right now we ain't got no money. So they feel they were cornered and they made the easiest decision because they could have gone the hard way, right? Which is don't don't do anything funny with the population. But then naturally, but it's painful because you got to
Right.
pay out of pocket so much money to continue this population, which gonna the trend if it doesn't get capped, you just continue grow because it's exponential. So you can make changes and slowly get that curve over the year down, or you can do what suddenly say, hey, nobody have more than one kid. That's it. So you cut off basically a large percentage of the population growth.
Yeah.
But now you're paying it. Now people like my age in China, the younger people, they're paying the price of that right now. Because once the economy goes not too well, they're the only kid. They have to take care of their parents. So there's also a cultural as well, because in China you have to take care of your family, right? So imagine if you get married, you got to take care of four parents. So who has the money to
Right.
do that? And that
Right. Right.
caused
Right.
less kids, even less kids. This is what's happening in
It's like a
South
chain
Korea,
effect.
in China, in Japan. It's happening, right? It's like people ain't got the money. It doesn't matter what kind of government structure you have. It could be in China, it could be in Japan, it could be. It doesn't matter if you're capitalist or socialist, whatever. This is what this is happening. There's no more
Yeah,
money.
this is how it's all connected, and then there are the repercussions to every decision, right? Again, it's an example of how, if you were to consider this much further into future, and
You
not
wouldn't
about
have
just,
done.
yeah,
Yeah,
not just about this population and not about this generation, but what's going to happen to that generation and their kids, and what are going to be
yeah.
impacts of that? It's like a wave that rolls over, and it's there, and you made the wave, and now it's going to keep going because that's just the nature of things.
Right. So that's China. But in similarly in the West, now, millennials and Gen Z and what have you, they're feeling the pressure right now. And comparatively, their boomer parents are much richer than them on average. So there's a lot of that kind of resentment over, the younger population have it for their older folks. It's like, well, you guys screw up the system. You guys are too greedy. You play the whole system until it collapses, right?
Well,
And
the
now
thing
we're the
is
one
that,
buying the bill.
but then it's like, how do you prevent stuff like that from happening? Because, yeah, you can find anyone to blame for anything at any point in time, dude. The
Yeah,
boomers also had stuff to blame, right? That's how always
yeah.
it works. The new generation blames the old generation because you didn't consider them. Yeah, well, are you considering the future generations right now to the full extent? No, nobody can even do that. What do you mean? We're just individuals living out in the individual world and trying to navigate as best as we can and not die tomorrow. That's the most that most of us are doing. So, what do you do? How do you consider all these possible repercussions? It's impossible.
Yeah, but there are definitely some cases of people getting too greedy that they are
Yeah,
not moderating themselves as
right.
we're, you know, and that's what happened. Again, one thing that happened was for example, the stock market. What happened in the 90s in the Clinton era? Bill Clinton introduced essentially he had an executive order but back then. I don't remember which year it was, but it basically allowed the stock market to use leverage. So options trading becoming more of a thing because
Oh, yeah,
before
yeah.
they were
You
more
mentioned that
regulated.
before.
Before they were more regulated, therefore they couldn't make as much money. But ever since that executive was signed, because I suppose at the time people thought, oh, the economy is going well, we're all making money, so why not? Why not make more money? So he's essentially signing that order to allow the stock market to go more crazy. You can actually make more bets. You can actually leverage up, jack to the tits. You can start doing that. And that's what people did. And yes, for a while they made money. But the thing is, you introduce, you open the floodgate, right? Once you
Yeah.
start that, when you deregulate everything, that's where start gonna 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 blow up in your face because people's greed are just infinite. They just like, oh, nice. This is
This is why, to me, this is where the Taoist philosophy is so beautiful, because this it talks exactly about this, is that you think you're trying to improve a situation. No, it's going to end up being this. And now your whole effort, you're at fault because you thought, "Ooh, I'm going to make the world better." And it's a paradoxical thing, right? But it kind of is true that not doing stuff like that, which is it's the to me the mystery of Wu Wei is still like a mystery. It's like a paradox, right? It's an it's a non-action action. It's
Am I
like,
supposed to do things or not do anything?
yeah. But to me, it kind of makes it that you don't do things just based on your mind, because your mind is this machine and algorithm that design. Essentially, it's completely egotistical, right? It's trying to like, ooh, how do I arrange things to extract profit from it? Essentially, right, at the basis of it. So it's that. It's if you cut out that, then things are much more harmonious. You just deal stuff with in your immediate vicinity, something like that. But if you have a plan to transform the whole world, what are the odds that that's going to work out so well for everybody long term? What are the odds of that?
No, it's just, and
Of your
everything
finite
takes,
mind.
and also everything takes effort, and by take effort to energy to maintain, right? So to maintain, even once you build the structure, you have to maintain it, and that costs a lot of constant attention, and
Yeah, the structure, the system, it's like a company that loses a leader, or even a country. To the extent, I think that's what happened to Rome, really. It's that the people who established the principle, who contributed to its prospering, once they've gone, the values and the systems and the processes are gone with them, and then the whole thing falls apart. So I think we might be touched on that before as well. But it's that, yeah. It's like, say if Jesus wasn't killed on the cross, and he was able to establish some kind of a stable system in a little country or something where population actually followed his principles. Well, after he's dead, it's still gonna all fall apart, because it takes Jesus to be
yeah,
there,
and
to actually maintain it
and
to
that's the
that degree.
problem, and that's the problem what we see, right? All these, even in religion, after the passing of a prophet or passing of an important figure, they
Yeah,
become split, right? They split because
yeah,
people have different ideas how it's supposed to be. Same
yeah.
thing with Buddhism, right? With all different
Every
type
single
of,
time. Yeah, there's so many traditions, there's so many schools of yoga. It's like, what? Why? Wasn't there one core teaching in the beginning of all of this stuff? What happened?
so that's the kind of quandary that we face. It's like, oh, there's too many aspects to this. So it's like,
Yeah.
who's right and who's wrong? And there's no right or wrong answer. Like nobody can say definitively, like, oh, this is definitely the way to go, and people try to convince other people that they're right, and because it's just kind of easier to do that than not, because people want to have some kind of solid structure by which to base their whole mental stability. They don't want the kind of anxiety inducing nature of not knowing to be the basis by which they build everything. So I mean, it takes an entire different approach to think that I'm on an adventure. I'm enjoying the kind of the unknown in terms of what something could happen, something exciting could happen. Yeah, that's a mentality to have. But I think a lot of people are not comfortable with that kind of way of thinking. They just mostly think of it like, no, I don't know. I want to know. You want to be sure that you're safe, that there's just not going to be any danger. And so that's a really fundamental kind of emotion that people have, the kind of reaction. So it's the how much of that do you yourself believe? How much is it really an adventure versus how much is it just like, oh, this is gonna be terrifying prospect? And I just keep thinking back about my own journey of starting my own little business and doing this kind of thing again. Back to risk assessment, I guess at that point it was like, well, better this than nothing, right?
Mhm.
Because see, as we have talked about earlier, sometimes you do have to consider, okay, where am I going with the job that I have? What's the point of doing the stuff that you're doing?
Right.
What's the final point? Because yes, like you said before, you could be stuck at the job, and if you continue to convince yourself to stay just because of the monetary value or what have you, well, you are destroying your future for yourself. Because in the depth of your mind, you know that this job is not gonna work out. You know you don't love the job. You know you don't enjoy this. This is not the thing that you want to be
Yeah.
doing,
And the big
eventually
thing
the
is that
consequence is that you will
it's
suffer.
gonna catch up to you. It's gonna catch up to you.
Exactly. Eventually.
And also, the big thing about not loving your job, it's one thing if you do actually love your job, then all the other things may not even be a concern to you because for a lot of people, I mean, that could be the most important factor, you know? If you do love your job, I think, like, what else do you want, right? At that point, you're not working really, you're playing because that's kind of how it works. But if you not only, yeah, if the job doesn't give you any prospects, any if there's no raises, if there are no promotions, and you don't love it, then there's no point in being there. It's a completely lose-lose
Yeah.
situation, right? And you'll feel it too.
Yeah, so I know it's very scary to make the choice, but now that thinking back, I'm like, actually, I was glad that I was able to make that decision, even though it was kind of a situation where I forced myself into that because for a longest time I was just ambling around like like a flotsam in the ocean, floating around. I didn't know where I was doing. And by not taking any actions, it caused me more grief until I realized, okay, I can't continue this anymore. I had to take some risk. I had to take some risk on myself, and not just kind of go along with just kind of this natural sort of reluctance into trying anything, because that was sort of like, oh, I could do anything, but then I don't know which one is the right choice. And that kind of stagnation that happens because of that mentality really cause quite a bit of anguish, right? But if you, actually recontextualize that and sort of make the kind of decision which you're not going to regret later on because it is true to your kind of core, you know? And yes, you're going to face difficulties, but because you know what's kind of true in your mind, in your heart, then there's no wrong decision. There's no wrong, nothing's bad, you know?
Hmm.
If you make that jump and see what happens. Because the worst you can do is just sit around and do nothing. Like that's
Yeah,
just the
exactly. You still need to try new things and new opportunities and take the risk of that. It's the ultimate risk is not having any risk, right? It's what they say,
yeah.
not taking on any
The
risk.
riskiest thing is to not take any risk, right?
Yeah,
Because everything then goes. It's not
yeah,
just you lose something, a little thing. It's like you lose everything, So that's not a great proposition. So it does again back to risk management, thinking in that terms, like, okay, well, how do I balance that out, and how much sort of do I internalize in terms of your goals, your because it really takes convincing yourself, right? It really takes convincing yourself that it is true. Everybody believe a certain method of how they carry themselves, how it's like you have to be true to yourself. And that's the only voice that you have to be like, okay, I don't know exactly what, but I'm gonna follow this and see what happens, you know?
yeah. There
Because
can be many approaches, and like many of them can be valid or invalid, but a lot of it you just don't know, and you just a lot of the situations you have to trust your gut. You
you
have
have
to
to
try
try.
this and that, and you have to trust your intuition and what makes most sense to you. Right? You have to at some point you have to make a call, but this balancing, right? The balancing of the decision and risk and everything that we talked about today, and it's tricky. It's imprecise. It's more of an art than science for
Yeah.
sure.
And so I think the idea this is again it's about letting go in a way that to not hold
Yeah,
so
you
tightly.
can't yeah, you can't clutch it too tightly.
Yeah, so again, that's the art of it, right? It's like, hey, how much effort or how much force do I put into it, versus because you don't want to be so rigid and you're not adapting to the changing environment, but you also don't want to be like, oh, nothing matters, too loose, right? You can't be too loose and you can't be too tight. So it's like that middle kind of ground, which is essentially kind of life itself, right? We exist in a state because the temperature range is just the
Yeah.
right range. We're living on a planet at just the right distance to the sun, and all these type of thing that it happens because this is the condition by which these things happen.
Mhm.
So even with the kind of things that you can do in your life, is also like, okay, what are the conditions by which I can cultivate this um path, so to speak,
Hmm.
right? There are different factors, but I had to know this is where I stand, this is my strengths, this is my weakness, this is my this and that. Like these are the qualities, these are the things. And you want to think through them, right? For any person, you do want to take the time, be like, oh, who
Yeah,
am I?
yeah.
Essentially.
This is why I like doing, just even go over such lists and stuff. It's like going over the important things, right? Like making sure like, okay, they're still on the forefront, there's still the important things, and there's still what I need to prioritize. But it is this revisiting that is, if you don't do it, if you don't build it into your life, it's just you won't be doing it, and you'll be just kind of winging it in every situation, right? But the whole point of wisdom and stuff that you already verified is that you want to abide by it. You want to say, it's like, okay, this is the heuristic, and I want to save myself trouble and keep it in mind. But to keep it in mind, you need to make effort and keep it in mind. You need to revisit it and evaluate it and think about it. Am I still doing it? Am I still adhering to these important principles? Are they still the valid principles? It's like a matter of practice. You have to constantly keep going. This is why partially I think we kind of are returning, to some of the points, and we touch base on the same things that we discussed before, but it's because they are relevant and because it gives us an opportunity to reevaluate them, because things change all the time. Some other news come out tomorrow and our whole stance on AI changes. Tomorrow AI become conscious and becomes our overlord, and we're like, oh, AI is great. Let's do AI.
It's a lot of things, yeah, it's depending on what people value, because the society could just like in the fictions, you have all these world people create where for example, like if we accept this certain type of rules, what will happen? Right? That's kind of these scenarios that people kind of put into fictions. And it's very interesting to consider. So, okay, if people accept these principles, then what will happen? And, you can have a utopian world or you can have a sort of a dystopian world. And it's very, thought provoking to think about, okay, if we accept this as a society, and it could happen, right? For real, like right now, there can be social changes by which a lot of things have like completely changed the way that we think about daily life, right? A certain technology, certain events, certain thing that could happen that just kind of reverberates everywhere. And we also think about, oh, what kind of principle that should we be doing? And there's the should, there's the could, and there's in between that is like,
Yeah,
yeah,
everything in
which what's
between.
the and there's certain things like just because we can, that doesn't mean we should. There's certainly a lot of that, but so is on the other side where, okay, how do people themselves think about their future and how they want to build it? What's kind of make them kind of go about their lives that makes sense? So like currently I mean I feel encouraged I feel really blessed to be even to be alive for one thing, right?
Hmm.
Secondly, to live in a society that I think for all its problems, think is kind of the right direction in terms of
Mm,
how people think about their social contract. Like here
nice.
in Canada, like of course, it's so easy for people to complain about, oh, this is not perfect, this is a
There's
problem, this,
always something to
you
complain
know,
about.
yeah, exactly. And going, especially when it comes to the political stuff and all that. But overall, I just think that the structures is sound. The
Hmm.
direction is more or less, I think for the huge future of humanity, I think something along the line of what Canada is doing is sort of the right direction, you know? Because I see it all over the world. Like, and for me, for half of my life, I was, being born in another country that is completely different on how they treat
Yeah.
the social contract and how they kind of, and I can see how the limitations of kind of what's going on, what's been happening over
Yeah.
in that
It's
region.
like the system should be minding and respecting human psychology as much as possible, I think, because that's what determines every individual in society, what they experience and how they experience life, because it's so divorced from human psychology, like in Japan, where it's like, no, this is the traditional and it doesn't matter how you feel. That doesn't make sense, because if the society and the tradition and the system is not for the people, then what's the point, right? It's like
Yeah.
it defeats the whole point of organizing the society. Why be such in such a society? It doesn't make sense. It's
And
dumb.
it's true. This is the more I see it, it's like, well, it's kind of like everybody knows the reason why. Like for example, for an immigrant, you kind of really in your heart, you know the reason why you immigrated to a different country, right?
Right.
So you can
You
say
may forget it
you
though.
might forget it, you might cite different reasons, but fundamentally you know something is not right. Something in the country that you're from, like this is not how I want it. This is not how something is going on. This is not, good. And now that kind of having the experience of being an immigrant and having sort of reintegrated into a different society, I can
Hmm.
see both sides now, right? And I
Yeah.
can see how it is the right decision because
Nice.
how you felt that was wrong, you can find an explanation why. There's a different way to explain it, but something is
Mm.
definitely wrong. Because now, if you see some of the actual things that, you know, take away the propaganda that the country and any country is trying to project, you see the fundamental problem. There are some structural problems that are like, okay, fundamentally, this is antithetical to good living,
Mm.
right? And I
Yeah.
see that in the place that I was born. Those places are still carrying out certain things that are whether you call tradition or some sort of just the way that they built the social contract is just there's no contract. There is no trust. There's no basis by which you can have a good life. Everybody is stressed out. You can play the game, you can tolerate it, you can do whatever you can accept in your head, but in those places, you're so oppressed by this overarching kind of like you're not there's no choices you can make. It's almost like it doesn't
Right.
matter what you think about it. The social
Mm.
contract is broken. Nobody respects it, and therefore you're against the whole world. It's like
Yeah.
basically
That
you.
means it's not a good system because
It's
it's
not a good system.
too many people in too many situations at disadvantage all the time.
Yeah.
Like
So
it doesn't feel good to be in that system for most people.
yeah, and it's that kind of winner takes all kind of thing where just creates so much friction for development because you have to first come to terms with the person that you want to deal with. You can't just go into a person and be like, hey, let's make a deal. This is why I can offer you, offer me this. Okay, deal. And you do it. No, right now you first have to think the other person is an asshole and he's going to take advantage of you, and therefore you must take advantage of him before he can do that to
Yeah.
you. So see this friction, right? There's a huge amount of friction,
Yeah.
lost revenue, lost money, or corruption, whatever it is you call it, is the lost efficiency that happens in
Mhm.
those society where it costs you so much mental energy just to be like to survive. It's like because every
Right.
time I go outside the house, somebody is trying to screw with me. Yeah,
And that's your whole life. Yeah.
that's your whole life. To kind of have to accept that, it takes a lot of mental anguish, a lot of you're just exhausted by all this overarching thing that just hang over you because you can't trust nobody. You can't just relax, you can't just like this is why yeah, you will start dwelling on these negativity because it seems like oh everybody sucks and everything is screwed up, you know? And that persists and everybody's thinking the same way, then that's how you have a shithole. This is how it
Yeah.
happens. Nobody
And
does
then it's like a cascading effect, right? Because everybody is in that position. It's like in that game we discussed, right? Everybody's always taking it all, and it never works out because of that. Because the more people do it, the more failures is, it's not conducive to prosperity for on everybody's part. It's counterintuitive, but it's essentially wrong because it just doesn't work out statistically. You can feel it, you know, objectively. It's bad. But that's where it's paradoxical. That's where it starts on individual level. Is that
exactly.
you have to make a choice because if you are just going along with the system, it's like being plugged into the matrix, right? It's like, well, that's what it looks like. You either make a choice or you join the enemy.
And see, this is the problem with kind of the current, I wouldn't say Eastern philosophy, but rather Eastern cultural practices of this sort of hierarchy and sort of follow the group, the mind think, the kind of, the sort of a hive mind mentality, or rather like, you follow the group, what the group says, you kind of take out your own individual agency. You're no
Right.
longer a decision-making body anymore. You're just
Exactly.
the drum. And somebody gonna take advantage of that, right? In a system where you don't value your own kind of agency, then somebody else gonna take that away from you. They're gonna be like, well, I'm gonna be the one making the decision, right? And because you can't check him, you can check the other guy. Because once he take over all the apparatus to take control over everything, he's gonna be like my way or the highway, right? Which is why um, I think even though democratic processes are very messy and chaotic, but at least it gives you as a participating body a level of agency to have kind of modulating effect. Like we're saying, moderate, right? It moderates these individual ambitions and group ambitions and what have you, and kind of find the right middle ground essentially, right? Because each person have a different viewpoint, they have a different kind of where they stand, and it's like that. To run a business, you got to meet in the middle. The client, the customer, and the service provider, the business owner, they have to find the middle ground. Okay, what's the price everybody's can agree on that they wanted to pay? So that's the middle ground, right? It's not the best that the thing that you wanted to have, but is the best that you have, because given
Hmm.
the environment, given the market, given whatever. So that's what we're trying to do, is to find that middle ground for all these things. So in this process is allowing people to be, like the social contract still lives in the West. Like if you lose that, like sure, you have these kind of companies that still, like we said before, that are like shady and, not, but
Yeah.
like you're saying,
That's always still there.
eventually consequences gonna,
Yeah, they're not going to survive.
they not gonna survive. Ultimately, they're not. Like they can survive for only for so long until the system are so out of whack that something gonna have to change, right? So I think overall, it's still true that people, because that's how you want to live. You want to be able to form these social contracts without additional frictions that I can go out there and say that generally my dealing with people here is most people are honest. Most people are. There are cases of, dishonesty and scam, sure. But
Not
overall,
at
for
that
for
rate.
for business to happen, everybody has to agree. Okay, if I'm gonna say I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do this. Then we agree on it. I'm gonna agree on it. I'm not gonna what's that word? Negate or renegade? No, I'm
Yeah,
not. I'm renege
renege, I think.
on my responsibilities, and that's how I build my business. It's like, yeah, you have to keep your word. If you agree on something, then you're gonna do it. Even if, see, this is what happened. Let's just say, even if I let's just say misquoted a job. Sometime if I feel like, okay, fine, I'll there could be possibly ways that I can get more money out of it. I'm
Mm.
like, no, it's okay. I already agree on this, so I'm not gonna go back on it just because because I agree on it, right? You
Which
can't
is, yeah,
change,
it's a choice because you could potentially do that, but like, I mean, that would require more negotiation, right? And it will require you to be a bit more
right?
prioritize the money more, right? So it's a
So
trade-off.
it's also yeah, it's also like, well, I don't know the other person's level of acceptance. If I do
Mm.
this, they
Yeah.
might just go away, right? So that's all that kind of game that you're playing, finding the price. What's the price people are willing to pay? And that's what we're all doing. So literally and metaphorically. So it's about the value that you kind of take. What's your personal value? What's the value that kind of, I don't know, that sustain you basically. And that's how you should be carrying out your life. Don't get influenced so much by the noise out there of, because there's too much BS. Too many people try to sell you something, they're trying to, like, I mean, I don't know. In a way, I get it, but another way, this is how things get shitty. Because if everything is just about the dollar, then people are just doing everything in their power to get more of it, despite
Yeah, no,
having to
it's
do,
soulless, right? It becomes soulless. It becomes like, what's the point? It doesn't, money is not going to fulfill you on their own. That's not what life is about.
yeah, but somehow, I don't know, humans just can't find peaceful existence. It seems like everybody
Yeah.
has something to kind of uh, like go ape about,
Yeah.
and it does. And somehow we could never solve these issues, and we're still bickering about. all kinds of stuff, you know? So I don't know. I guess so that individual agency, it does matter. What you do as an individual, it does affect the whole thing. But I just think that to really structure something in which everybody can agree on, it's almost impossible.
Hmm.
So you can only do the best you can to affect the circles that you can affect, around you. And that's about all that you can hope for. Because fundamental change, it's almost has to be like everybody have to be on the same page. And that's, I would say, literally impossible to get, because now you can say that, wow, you can replace this factor, but then something else will just replace it, and that will be more or less the same thing, right? This is what we observe with countries, like they can have their leader being replaced, but then it doesn't fundamentally change the game is being played. So in that sense, all these utopian ideas are just fictions, right? Because to actually carry it out, to actually execute it, you need coherent effort. Like everything has to kind of work together for that to happen. But there are just way too many factors in society by which kind of people measure their own self-worth versus their social kind of identities and what have you to kind of
Yeah.
formulate a systematic change that can happen. It's more like, yeah, we all wish these better policies to kind of exist, but it's always going to be stepping on somebody's toe because, just like I said before, right, the status quo hold the status quo for a reason, and they are the one to can benefit more from it to maintain it. And that's why they do, and it's just fundamental to human behaviors. So for the change to happen, just enough force had to be behind it for that to kind of affect the whole game. So
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what it's going to be. But I don't know. From personal experience, it does kind of feel like it's happening, at least the societal change. It's happening slow enough where, it's not like every day you have something else. People are still, having to find jobs, do business, have relationships, and talk to each other. That's still
you
not
will
going
still find
anywhere.
out
Yeah.
what can be achieved, right? People are, as long as people are alive, they're going to be finding ways to live in the world. And in that sense, it's like it's more about can we create the can we create a better environment by which we can all be a bit better than we currently are, because certainly all these things that are happening, a lot of it are just kind of a lot of conflict. A lot of these things are not being resolved, and we're just being too emotional about it, to solve this. But if we just calm down a bit and just kind of sit back and okay, can we start changing some of these stuff? And I think yeah, and it's certainly certain groups we're all doing part of it, but it's just by degree, right? But it's just so hard for individuals to kind of enact a similar kind of it's just so hard. It's just almost impossible to be on the same point, in terms of what we want to all achieve. But all we can do is have a conscience. That's the basic minimum, you know? And if you do just that, it doesn't matter if it's gonna be a major effect or not, yeah, at least you can live with yourself. At least you're like, okay, this is at least not the most worst option that I chose to kind of go ahead and do.
Yeah. No, that's the ever changing landscape and the ever changing human desires and what they conceive problems. It really, like, the more I think about the spiritual stuff, and I've been thinking about it from all kinds of angles, but it's still at the core of it is, I would say, peace. Is that ultimately you need to make sure that your life is peaceful, and that's your baseline, and that's your starting point, and that's your goal, and everything else comes after it. Because people who are at peace, they're not going to be doing that much bullshit, to others. I think
Yeah.
that's the important part for everybody to strive towards. It's not, and to not forget it, not mix it up. That no, this is the important, because this is how evil happens. People think that other things are more important than even other humans, right? Oh, I'm gonna make more money and screw this other person. What do I care? That's that's how we end up hurting other people, because we're prioritizing the wrong thing. We're forgetting, because it's just factually. wrong. It's factually worse. It's just it takes you enough mistakes to learn that lesson,
To
right? And
experience
like
it
really,
too.
yeah, and really internalize it into experience. Like, oh, that's what happens, right? It's just don't do it to the thing to the other person that you don't want to be done to you, right? It's basic. It's that. But apparently, we keep forgetting. People are not as aware of it as it's that. Like everybody still needs Jesus. Like no matter how you spin, that's the
The
that's the
come to
lesson.
Jesus moment, yeah. You
It's
just
still it's
yeah, so it's
Well, it's only been a couple of items from the list, but we
my God.
essentially took 3 hours to cover that. So imagine that.
I don't know. We need to
We need to expand and we need to increase the frequency of the episodes because
it's
we're not going to be
I
able
don't
to
know why
cover the
it
list.
feels like this is I mean,
Like we've been talking for 10 minutes, right?
yeah, I didn't feel like we're did we how well did we do? Did we talk in circles or
No, no, I think it was great. It's just we do spread out into all kinds of adjacent topics, but at this point, this is by design. This is kind of the points a springboard, from to jump off from, and I think I like that. I think that works. The We'll still be trying episodes where we concentrate more on a single topic,
yeah.
but comparing to what we've done with those, like I think this works still because we do end up talking about all the poignant connected things. Um, and they still loop back to what we started with. And then the concept of a list works great because there's always more on the list. We never run out of the items on the list. So at least, we can go through some of these a bit more. And in the meantime, I'm preparing some more deeper topics that will be zeroing in a more concentrated fashion in next episodes. So tune in for more deep fried sporkness. All right, stay crispy out there.